I'm pleased to have as our guest Mr. Galen Windsor from Richland, Washington. I first heard of Galen from a tape that somebody gave to me some months ago, and I found his story to be absolutely fascinating. His story is unique, to say the least. Galen has been in 77 different cities in the last 2 years lecturing on the subject of nuclear energy. The majority of his life, the last 35 years, he spent processing plutonium from nuclear reactor sites. He has worked in the Manhattan Project facilities in Hanford, Washington, Oak Ridge National Laboratories and Nuclear Plant in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, General Electric's Midwest Fuel Recovery Plant in Morris, Illinois, General Electric's Fuel Fabrication Facility in San Jose, California, and Wilmington, North Carolina. And he's worked in every major reactor decommissioning project around this nation up to this present time. His major work in these projects has been the analytical process inventory control, which means that he was responsible for measuring and controlling the nuclear fuel inventory for these projects. Galen Windsor has few peers in the world in this area of expertise. And those few peers admittedly know and agree with the things that you'll be hearing on this tape. However, except for 2 or 3 of these experts, they've all chosen to remain silent for reasons which they only know, leaving this man then the burden of leading this lonely battle of exposing what we call the nuclear scare scam. He's without question one of the world's foremost authorities in nuclear radiation measurement, and he's recognized by members of the Atomic Energy Commissions of all the major nations of the free world. Mr. Galen Windsor. God bless you.
Thank you, Ben. We've been considering today how best to approach this subject so that you would feel comfortable with where I am. And we thought it might be appropriate to start with how I got involved in this game. Now, in 1945, I was a Navy radioman out in the Pacific on a destroyer aimed for Japan. We had a one-way ticket. That's all you get, just one way. So as we were becoming proficient at our business of fighting war, the Manhattan Project caught up with us and did a job. Now, the weapon that was dropped on Hiroshima, Japan in August 6, 1945 was a U-235, fully enriched U-235 weapon, where the material was separated and purified in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. The one that was dropped August 9th on Nagasaki was a plutonium weapon made at Hanford. But to those of us out in the Pacific, it was quite interesting. It had a ticket on it that says, "You get to go home." I was impressed. Now, I was stuck out on Guam after the hostilities quit and was running a radio broadcast that communicated with 4,500 ships west of Pearl Harbor. Quite a few to listen to every dot and dash that I made. So I was used to having people listening to me. They couldn't see me, because they could sure hear me. I had all of the good messages that were to come to them. Fleet movements to Red Cross messages. They came along one day and says, "We'd like to have radiomen to go down to Anahuac for the atomic bomb tests." Not me. No way. I want to go home. So they went through and they took every 3rd radioman to go to Anahuac. I didn't go. They let me come home. But I wanted to go home. I had a driving need within me that says, hey, that big firecracker, I want to know how it works. I want to know everything about how it works. So back to the ranch in Nevada where I grew up and stacked hay all summer, gained back the 40 pounds that I'd lost out there in the islands. Into Brigham Young University in the fall of '46 in chemistry classes. Dr. Joseph Nichols could make an old farm kid like me love chemistry. I hadn't had any chemistry in high school, but the way Joe Nichols taught it, I wanted to know. So chemistry it was. And some neat guys like Carl Eyring taught me physics. And along in '47, I ran across a cute blonde from Richland, Washington. Now this girl had been telephone operator for General Leslie Groves and Dr. Enrico Fermi on the Manhattan Project. She got to put through the calls to Franklin Delano Roosevelt for these guys. So she talked personally to FDR. And she told me some of the stories like you've never heard. She says, oh, in those canyons, great things are done. This cowboy from Nevada couldn't even imagine what she was talking about. Well, in 1947, after we were married, I ran until she caught me. I wasn't going to get married anyway. I wanted to get my education. I had to get on with this thing. And so we went to Richland, Washington for the first time in September of 1947. I saw that those buildings she was talking about were there. 1,000 feet long, 11 stories high, 5 of them below ground. Tremendous things. And people all over. Camp Hanford in those days was a whole army camp just there to secure that place, to provide security. Thousands of soldiers. You move around out in the desert and hop out of a foxhole and pop a soldier with a gun in his hand. There wasn't any horsing around. It was all business. Back to school. In 1950, I applied for a job up there before I'd graduated. And they were in such bad need of chemists, I had a job before I had my degree. And so the last year of my chemistry, mostly English, I did on a bus, riding 25 miles to work in the morning and 25 miles back at night. And I did advanced grammar and business writing and all of those things on that bus. But in September 1950, I got into this thing called plutonium processing when we did it barehanded, without instruments, without coveralls. We had some of the most peculiar acid burns in some of the shirts. And I found one of those the other day. It's got acid burns all up the front of it. Plutonium on it too. Amazing. That was normal operation in those days. We ran those facilities and we ran them so well that by 1965, we had separated enough plutonium when it only existed in the parent uranium matrix to a half of a single weight percent, 0.005 weight fraction of plutonium maximum in that fuel. And we processed enough tons of uranium to recover.
So just to reiterate that point, they would handle plutonium with no safety gear regularly.
Enough plutonium by 1965 to meet the weapons needs of this country 10 times over for the foreseeable future. Now we're talking about a massive amount of work. Hands-on, do it type thing. And there was a couple thousand of us and we were just happy as could be, just working like mad, making those plants run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in a community that ran on shift work, A, B, C, D shift. The whole community that way. a wartime community, people dedicated to doing a job, and we were doing it, and we did it well. No pretense. Oh, yes, there were. Out in the reactor began to sneak in people who wanted a radiation monitor behind every reactor operator. Why? We know how to make these things run. When we got a metal fuel element stuck and it fell down on the trampoline back of the reactor, we'd go in with our feet and kick it off into the pool, smoking, burning. If you didn't have an instrument, you didn't know it was too hot, so you just went in and kicked it. Finally, along came a rule maker that says, thou shalt not do that. You'll get burned. Oh, I didn't get burned when I did it last week. But you exceeded the limit. Well, where did this limit come from? Turns out that in 1934, the International Commission on Radiation Protection fabricated a limit for X-rays. It was no longer permissible to be burned by them, erythema, reddening of the skin. You now had to keep a limit called 0.2 of an hour per day. How much is that? Well, you've got to have one of these Beckman instruments to read it, and you have to keep time of exposure. You know, there are 4 requirements on this thing: the size of the source, therefore the strength of the source, the distance from the source, the time of exposure, and the intervening shielding to keep from getting burned. Oh, fine. We've been doing this thing for years now, and we've never been burned. Why have we got these rules? And they says, yours is not to ask questions, yours is to do and die. Don't you ask questions. If you do, you might disappear. Those who broke the rules didn't appear the next day. Military rule? Oh, yes. Absolute. What was your appeal? And people you were working with one day, when they weren't there the next day, you didn't go inquire why. You were just grateful you still had your work to do, and you kept right on doing it. Now, this is in the United States of America. Well, in 1960, we found out that the materials that we were working with, the thing that we called high-level waste, that if you waited 3 years, these million-gallon tanks that high-level waste went into boiled off 15,000 gallons of water a day. Fairly hot? Oh, yes. This material that if it ever broke a line would seal itself off in the ground within a foot, make its own glass. It wasn't going to go anyplace. We did that a time or two, accidentally, of course. And so we started packaging this cesium-137 in casts and railroad cars like that and shipping it to Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And they'd take it out and make it into a barium titanate and press it into a pellet. And those things were so hot that they actually glowed in the dark from the infrared heat. Now, thermo-ionic conversions came along at this time. So you hook these little heat sources up to thermionic converters and you took electricity out this side, no moving parts. These things went into the SNAP program. And these early SNAP power generators are what powered the underwater transmitters for our nuclear navy. We've got a regular road map under the sea. All you got to do is have an instrument that knows how to find it, and then you've got eyes on a submarine. You didn't know that, did you? The power from it came from this material that they now call waste. We processed that stuff and packaged it outside at Hanford. Well, we had rules that said 3R per year is your allowable exposure, that amount of gamma energy that will expose a film pack. But that was for the people that didn't know. We weren't about to follow those rules. We just went ahead and did the job. They send around an investigation slip that says your dosimeter was overexposed 2 weeks ago. What did you do? And they had a cute little form on it that says accidentally exposed to light, and that was the one I always used to check. Because it's the same amount of light. You know, if you get gamma through the film pack, it's the same amount of light as you get when you click the lens on a camera. They wanted to limit us to that. And one day we looked up, and they had limited us to that amount of exposure. Then the fun part of the game begins. You say, who limited us to that? Are they powerful? Yeah, they control the purse strings. They live by the golden rule. Them that's got the gold makes the rules. If you like your work, you keep the rules. If you don't keep the rules, you disappear. Sure enough, some of us disappeared. Some of my friends gone. Where'd they go? I don't know. Well, 2 years ago, I started traveling for American Opinion Speakers Bureau, and one of the documents that they had was Major Jordan's diary. A story of shipping the technology and the material that was developed at Hanford in 1944 directly to Russia on US Air Force planes out through Great Falls, Montana, Fairbanks, Alaska, under the auspices of one Harry Hopkins, and with the at least tacit approval of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Now what are you going to do? That thing that we had been doing and feeling so good about had been shared at no expense with Russia. You go back and you check the record and you find Russia did not develop their own nuclear atomic weapon until 1949, even when we supplied them the material and the knowledge. 4 years after we touched them off at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We weren't happy with that. We were just happy doing our job. Well, in 1965, General Electric was ready to leave Hanford. I'd worked for General Electric for that 15 years, and they took me out to California, San Jose, and we had in mind to design and build this nuclear fuel reprocessing plant at Morris, Illinois. They told me they were going to build it at San Luis Obispo. That's how they got me away from Hanford. But that was just to get me away from Hanford. I got to design the sampling analytical system for this plant. The sample cell was the hydraulic heart of this place. I got to dictate where they put the columns, how high the columns were in relation to my sample cell. One man standing in front of a lead glass window could sample any liquid stream in that whole plant. It took crews of men at Hanford to do the same thing. I wasn't happy with that, so I built an efficient system. I got to design that. I got to build it. Conceptual design, detailed design, build it, operationally test it. And in 1973, they says, forget it, friends, you don't get to run it. We had 170 tons, metric tons of spent fuel stored in the basin. And the then president of the United States, do you remember who it was? Jerry Ford. Says, friends, no way, you don't get to run it. That's when I started to kick over the traces. Up to that point of time, I thoroughly enjoyed my work. I had no limitations, practical limitations. I had all the money to spend. I was in charge of the design effort. I built it the way that I wanted to because it was technically correct. All I had to do was check with engineers and make sure that it was right. And all of a sudden I was told, you must reduce your limits of exposure by a factor of 10. I says, I won't do it. First thing you know, you got the word that says, oh, yes, you will. I says, no way. Well, that's when the rebel, Galen Windsor, started to show up. And when I found out that by management conference, I couldn't get to these guys. I figured out another way. Now in this plant is a beautiful pool. It's got a place to store spent fuel bundles till it won't stop. 660,000 gallons of water, demineralized, just as clear and pretty as it can be. Heated to 100 degrees Fahrenheit when the outside temperatures are minus 20, wind chill factors down to a minus 60. And I found out that I could swim in that rascal. You turn off the lights at night and it had a light blue Cherenkov effect. And this kid from Nevada that never could pass up a warm swimming hole used to go swimming in that pool. There wasn't anybody that had the nerve to swim with me, but since I was manager of safety and analytical services at this plant, it was mine to use. Oh boy. I found out that I could do that. I showed some financial types one time that I could stir that pool with my bare hand and check out through the same radiation monitors they did without triggering it. GE didn't like it. I got a letter from him that says, "Thou shalt not tell financial types that you can swim in the pool, that you can stir it with your hand, because if they find that out, they will steal the inventory. They will know that the inventory can be stolen." Oh, is that a valuable inventory? The same material that's labeled high-level waste by our current government, our current Congress. Now, plutonium is an interesting chemical element. It is created in a nuclear reactor. The Manhattan Project built 8 of these reactors at Hanford. The first one took 12 months from sagebrush to nuclear steam to build, and it had never been done in that size before. How could they do that? Why did they do it? To create this element called plutonium. Plutonium has been assessed as being the most hazardous material on Earth. Now, from a standpoint that you can make an atomic weapon out of it, yes, it is quite hazardous, because a piece of it that big, 2.5 kilograms, that's only 5 pounds, is the force that delivered 20,000 tons of TNT equivalent over Nagasaki. Indeed, it is hazardous. The one over Hiroshima that had fully enriched U-235 in it was 5 times as big. So plutonium is more dangerous than U-235, is it not? By a factor of 5. Takes 5 times as much U-235 as it does plutonium. Therefore, it is the most hazardous thing. Enter the great pretenders. They said that 5 grams of plutonium, properly distributed over the face of the Earth, would kill everybody on Earth. Now, if you can only get one 20 kiloton weapon to go on 2,500 grams, how's 5 grams going to kill everybody on Earth? Early on, I had a fear that said, if there is this much fissile material that can undergo a chain reaction, we called it in the beginning, then if you set a match to it, all the fissile material in the world is just going to keep right on going. Totally unfounded fear. It turns out that when you're in this business of recovering plutonium, like we recovered so much of it at Hanford, we found out that if you have it in a solution where it's less than 5% plutonium, it won't go critical any way that you kick it. And when you get it to 100% plutonium, you better be careful. Because if you put it in more than a 5-inch diameter cylinder, you're playing with fire. You can undergo what is known as an uncontrolled criticality, accidental criticality. The air turns blue. If the cylinder is sealed, it will explode from steam pressure. And that steam pressure builds up in a millisecond, which is about that long. No, you don't horse with it. And then you find out that those 8-foot thick shielding walls on those canyons were put there because they didn't know how much was a critical mass. They says, if we make a mistake, we don't want to die, so we will provide the shielding. And so the shielding thing started for no other reason than they didn't know what was a critical mass. Well, through the years, we got pretty good at telling what a critical mass was. And I have worked in a plant where I had half a critical mass in this hand, barehanded, dressed in street clothes, half in this hand, wearing a lab coat, and I'd put this half in a pocket on this side and this half in a pocket on this side and walk down the hall. If those two ever got together, there would be a blue flash. They never got together because I was in between them. And we do that every day. And each half had to meet definite dimension characteristics. And so we'd take them down and pass them one half at a time, and they'd measure it and say, yeah, that one will pass. And then we'd pass them the other half, and that one will pass too. But they were carefully put in separate bird cages so they couldn't get together accidentally. Well, those of us who worked with it enjoyed it. We knew what we were doing. We worked at it. When the President of the United States decided not to operate that fuel reprocessing plant, I started scrambling to find out what was going on. Many things had been done in the name of health and safety. Don't get burned. You got to have safety record. You have to be safer than anybody else. We were already safer than anybody in the whole world. Well, you can't afford to get burned with this. You've got to enforce the limits. You've got to keep it. And I says, hey, that's not what the ball game is at all. I'll bet you the ball game is something else. And in 1982, when the Congress passed the Nuclear Waste Policy Act of 1982, a guy by the name of Mo Udall, I don't know whether you people in Arizona have ever heard of him or not, authored that bill. It's called the High-Level Waste Disposal Act of 1982. The material he called waste is the reusable uranium fuel that I had been working on for 32 years. Needless to say, Mo Udall and I do not agree on whether that material is waste or not. The name of the game then is, who owns the plutonium and how much is it worth? The government says, bury it 3,000 feet deep in basalt, and we'll hold a contest among the states to see who gets to bury it. Oh, why do you want to bury it? Did you ask the owners? Who is the owner of the plutonium? May I submit that it's most likely the nuclear power ratepayer. He is paid for the mining, the fabrication of the parent uranium, power generation, and is being charged in advance for its burial. If you're paying for it, to whom does it belong? How much is it worth? In inflated dollars, a ton of reusable uranium fuel contains useful metal isotopes worth upwards of $10 million a ton. Mo Udall says it's high-level waste. The value of reusable uranium fuel scheduled for permanent disposal probably exceeds the national debt. Naturally occurring plutonium quantities, and you know plutonium does occur naturally. Plutonium-244 is found at the residual activities of the several, 8 at least, Oklo phenomenon reactors across the world. First one found at Gabon, Africa. Naturally occurring plutonium quantities have been enhanced by transmutation of uranium. That's the reason we built reactors in the first place. Our ability to detect and measure emissions from these elements is useful in inventory control. When fissile elements, fissile isotopes are present at less than 5 weight%, plutonium-239 equivalent, and the heavy metal oxide matrix is stored dry in air, it has no critical mass. Remember, we talked about shielding was because they didn't know what a critical mass was. If it is light water reactor fuel at less than 5% equivalent fissile content, you can handle it, you can do anything you want with it, you can stack it up, you can have a room full, you can have a handful. As long as you keep it dry, it will not sustain a chain reaction. What then is all this falderall about a little bit, 5 grams will kill everybody in the world? They don't know what they're talking about. And when they say that, they're thumbing their nose at measurement experts like Galen Windsor. I am insulted when they say those things and get away with it because it has no bearing on the truth. It cannot be mishandled. It will not expose any person to an unshielded nuclear reaction. In other words, no controls are necessary except to prevent the pilferage of the inventory. Have you got that one? Let it register. Do you need governmental rules and regulations and instructions? No way. Then why do we have all of those rules? Inventory control practices capitalized on the fear of undereducated masses who work in the industry. I didn't say anything about ordinary people now. I'm talking about the people who have worked in the industry and those who cast stones from without. The Ralph Meatards, the Jane Fondas. Now, it doesn't take you much thinking to find out that maybe the industry is the source of the problem. The industry is the one that made up the committees, that made the rules, that the Congress enforced. You ever thought of it that way? The strangest kind of feather bedding that's ever been dreamed up, it makes the railroad engineers look like pikers. The only amounts of fissile process materials that are of health concern to the handlers are those that can accidentally cause an unshielded nuclear chain reaction, or that will cause erythema from the shortest wavelength, highest frequency, and therefore the most easily shielded ultraviolet light emissions of the electromagnetic spectrum. Big words, let's see what they mean. The emissions from uranium, plutonium, cesium, all of those things are only important if you assemble an amount that if you get this amount and this amount together, it can go critical. You can get a blue flash and therefore get burned. And that's happened 34 times in the business, and 8 men have died as a result of that. Accidental criticality. Documented in Los Alamos document 3611, if you want to check the source. Or if you've got enough of it together that it's giving off ultraviolet light of this particular wavelength and frequency without any intervening shielding, enough to burn you sunburn you, erythema, reddening of the skin. If it's less than that, if the effect is less than that, then what is the problem? Excessive government regulation. That's what's the problem. Tritium. Heavy water. Deuterium is hydrogen 2. Tritium is hydrogen 3. If you let an inventory get away from you, what's going to happen to it out in the biosphere? Nothing other than it will become diluted and join the naturally occurring inventory of tritium, because tritium is created in the upper atmosphere by sunlight. We have a natural inventory of tritium. Then the only thing that happens when you release tritium, which is the trigger mechanism for bombs, it's the source of the push that makes it go, is that you lost a valuable inventory. Then what of these people that are pretending that a little bit of tritium is going to do you in? It is not so. What are those 2 points? Only if it is an economically recoverable concentration, or if it has a natural reconcentration mechanism. You know, there isn't any one of the radioisotopes out there that has a meaningful level of reconcentration in any of the species, not even the oysters in the bays in Maryland, below Calvert Cliffs. Why then are we still playing this game that any amount of this material is of hazard? Reusable uranium fuel, which has been isotopically enhanced in power-producing reactors, is a valuable national resource, not a high-level waste. The utility operators recognize the future worth of this commodity. Mo Udall, in that Nuclear Waste Policy Act of 1982, imposed a tribute of $1 per kilowatt hour, $1 per megawatt hour on all electricity produced in a nuclear plant, so that they can research and develop methods to throw it away. Why do the utilities willingly pay this amount to the Secretary of Energy? To limit their liability exposure. Who pays that amount anyway? The consumer of nuclear generated power. You have no choice, and therefore I call it a tribute.
What up, y'all? Oh,
Oh no. Never mind.
what up? Sorry, Bob. I had to mute your background is always so loud.
Oh,
All right, go again,
sure.
Bob.
Oh, I was just saying hi to everybody, and I said hi to Braxton. How you guys doing?
Good.
Good to see you, John Bob.
Good to see you too. Is it loud now or no?
Yeah, you might want to set your mic to automatically adjust because some people have been mentioning that the levels are really crazy, and if we're all set to that setting, it'll keep it in check.
How do
But yeah, so this is Galen Windsor. Weird video. I made a video like last year, kind of like critiquing, like the video looks a little deep fakey to me. And I don't know if it's just because it's like film that's been put digital, you know, it just looks a little weird. But if it is, it's a really well done one. It's not like a NASA one or anything like that. Like some people actually like with like skills did it. But I don't know. It's just a little odd of a video to me. But this video, you know, is pretty dope. Because this dude, I mean, he was the guy. And he seems legit, and I don't know why he'd go around saying all this stuff if it wasn't true. And then this leads into, like nuclear bombs being fake. It's all just boogeymen trying to scare us into. It's a justification for taxation for the government. Like if we don't have reasons to need the government, then why would we'd all be like, why are we giving all our money to this government if they're not doing anything for us? As long as there's the nuclear scare, we're going to need government to handle all the nuclear stuff. So it's just like inventing space travel and NASA and all that. As long as this idea that we need to get off our realm because of something bad happening or global warming or nuclear bombs or stuff like that, we're going to be like, all right, well, we need to make sure we pay our taxes so they have NASA sending, so they can fund NASA to send rockets up there. Like it's all this unending BS, train of bullshit that we have to pay for, and then and it all starts, it starts with stuff like this. At least the rabbit hole, this freaked me out when I first saw it, but I had already, growing up, kind of was skeptical about nukes, just because why haven't we used them again?
It's a big bluff.
Yeah, it's just like, why haven't we been back to the moon again? It's going to be hard to sell a new generation of people on the moon footage, and there's going to be too many people critiquing it. They're going to get caught. That's why they've never done it. And that's why they didn't do a lot of moon landing movies in the past 30 years. They didn't until the flat earthers started talking about it. Because if they do a moon landing movie and it looks really good, then that proves that they always could have done a moon landing video, So,
are you talking about works of fiction about the moon, like movies where the subject is about the moon, or
about
space travel?
moon landing? Moon landing specifically hasn't been done until recently, because tons of flat earthers were pointing this out. Eric Dubé was pointing it out in every one of his videos.
So
Jack Talcott's in the house.
Jack Talcott got some crossover, the biggest crossover since the Avengers.
Jack's page is getting big. He's got good numbers. He's got some.
So this reminds me, there was this movie I watched a couple months ago. It was really a cheesy movie. It was one of those disaster films, I think, like Roland Emmerich or something like that. It was about the moon. The moon, its gravitational orbit was disrupted, and it was coming to crash down into the Earth. You know which one I'm talking about? Yeah. So that movie was such a trip because it's revealed. I mean, kind of spoilers, but it's it's just kind of a B movie, honestly. It's revealed that the moon was secretly a alien satellite that was built by robots or one of those Cylon kind of critters that is throughout science fiction.
What movie is this?
Race lovers asking hard
Go and
questions.
shut down the. They have to go.
Do you know what movie it is? Do you know what movie it is?
I think it's called Moonfall. It's got
Moonfall.
Halle Berry in it, something like that.
Okay, that's a James Bond
Halle
movie.
Berry's.
That's a James Bond movie, isn't it? No.
No, not a James Bond movie. It's literally a big production B movie from Roland Emmerich or is it the guy that did the 2012 or the days? What is it called?
It's not the movie about the Nazis on the moon, is it?
No, it's not the Nazis on the moon. It was
that movie. That movie's really funny.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about. They go to the center of the Earth and he's riding a T-Rex and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, not stuff based on Operation High Jump.
Yeah.
The conspiracies around that Nazi UFO technology. No, this one was a trip to me because, like, out of all the stuff about the moon, that seems like very likely to me. The artificial satellite, like, there's too many things that are a coincidence about it that make it seem like it could be an artificial satellite, but it's like it's so old that it's just like an abandoned, like, orbiting craft, and it's just so beat down that you can't recognize it as a piece of machinery. It's just like an old rusted out truck, you know. It'll return back to the earth at some point.
Yeah, you want to know something weird about that? I've looked into that a little bit, and there's this weird thing where, like, if something hits the moon, it actually swells, like, I guess kind of suggesting that, like, it's possibly hollow. And then what else?
Or it makes a gong sound, they said, when they landed one of the land.
Yeah, the orbiter dropped a piece off and it rang like a bell. Yeah, they said that.
Yeah, right.
I've heard that too.
Were you guys any of you guys on Boy Scouts? Were any of you guys?
Well, if you look at all the impact craters, they're all like the same depth. They don't go any deeper than a certain dimension.
Well, and also, why are there impact craters facing the Earth? Were we shooting at them at some point?
I mean, have we seen the other side to know that there isn't any?
Everywhere I've been on the planet, in the world, I've seen the same, like, image on the moon. It's kind of weird.
Well,
the moon in Nicaragua was like, it was like Tic Tac
tidally locked.
Yeah,
they do claim it's tidally locked.
So
yep. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that's not part of the conspiracy to me, because there's other celestial objects that are tidally locked, like they don't rotate on their own axis.
Yeah.
They don't have their own rotation based on the planet that they're orbiting.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, I when I was 15, I sailed on a boat from Valparaiso, Chile to San Francisco, and I had the dog watch, which is the watch that's from like 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. So like I got up in the middle of the night, and all there is I mean, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense that nothing's really moving. I don't know. Like I would wake up and watch the same. It was 8 weeks nonstop. So I was out there bored looking at the sky. No internet, obviously. It wasn't even times of internet. And you know, the same stuff would just go by, and then like when I was in Nicaragua, like you'd look straight up in the air and it would be black. It would be super blue everywhere. You'd look straight up and it would be black. And then when the moon was full, it would look like a Tic Tac there. It was so weird. Like, I don't know, just weird stuff. But I asked a bunch of Nicaraguans if they thought that we were spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, and they laughed at me. It was funny. Nicaraguans, like your average Latin American, is far more like politically minded and like kind of more realistic than most Americans. It was pretty wild going down there and living for a while. But
hey,
I don't know.
Speaking of looking at things in the sky, me and Teresa saw what appeared to be Starlink going across the sky. So I don't know. We didn't know what it was at first, but we kind of looked it up. It looks like a choo-choo train going across. Like it's a long train. It's a long string of lights. Yeah, dude.
You saw the internet antennas, quote unquote.
It was just a long string of lights that were going across.
Starlink. That's Starlink.
Yeah, that's what they said it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they just fly drones with lights on them over cities, and everyone, you know, and then on the internet they say, hey, that's Starlink. And so everyone's like, oh, it's Starlink. You know, just like they have something that flies over North America twice a day that they say is the space station. You know, like you can go outside and see it go by. Someone told me to do it. I went outside and I saw something go by, but like that was just something. You know, I can't identify that as the space station because someone told me it was the space station. You know, because that's just not enough for me. So
And they
so
also
the
got
the Starlink thing, I think they're running, you know, in place that, you know, they're just running some op, you know, they have some sort of bright, you know, there's something going on. They're just flying some shit over the cities and enough people. It's just like what they do these launches from Vandenberg in LA. We saw one, we literally saw one the other day. We're just watching and I was like, oh, look, start SpaceX, you know. And it was all, she's never seen one. I've seen 3 of them now that we got to watch a whole SpaceX launch, and it's like it's such bullshit because they fly it all the way down the coast, so LA, Orange County, a bazillion people see it, you know.
Is that even a good trajectory?
No, like why do they always go up and out and down, you know? Like why don't they just go up like they used to show us they went up when I was a kid, you know? My dad worked in Vandenberg as a paramedic, and we were picking his brain about the launches because I was asking him because he's seen some of the SpaceX ones, and I was like, do they look the same as they used to? And he was like, not really, you know. We were seeing like weird blue sparkly stuff falling off the back, and you know, like you know, and it's just a show, you know, and like you drive through LA and you go by the airport and there's a giant SpaceX building, you know, and it's like every Tesla dealership is like right off a freeway, so you see it, like, you know, it's just like it's too obviously such an op, you can't get around it, you know, like there's no way no one knows about, you know, who Musk is and all this bullshit space stuff. But you know, like there's all these people that think there's a Tesla floating around in space, you know, and you know, like Justin Pedini.
Name drop.
Or space.
But yeah, the whole nukes are fake and space is fake. Space travel's fake. It's all the same op that's been run on us since
Dude, I'm not gonna lie. Owen Benjamin definitely put out some really good expos.
Yeah.
They spend a lot of money on teaching us the wrong information to keep us confused.
Yeah. And this is just kind of, I mean, if this is legit, this is proof of it because, you know, and then in all the nuclear bomb movies, they always show people getting irradiated and dying. When I was working with Luke Radowski, he went to Japan and went and like toured the nuclear Fukushima and all that stuff. Yeah. And like I was always skeptical of Luke. I worked with him for a long time, but I was always skeptical of him, and seeing where he is now, it makes sense that, you know, he's a part of, he's in the team. He's on the team now. But when I worked with Luke, he had like a plane ticket. He could fly anywhere in the world whenever he wanted. And so I took care of the website and content and aggregating articles and writing articles. That's when I wrote that article about traveling that I think is his biggest article ever. But I was asking him, I was like, dude, did you really go see like deformed people? You know, and he's like, yeah, sure, man. You know, and he was like, just like had these like BS answers, you know, that weren't very like convincing. And he was like running around with the Geiger counter, like freaking out, you know, oh, there's too much, you know, he's like doing all this stuff. And if you know Luke is the guy at Bohemian Grove every year. He's at, you know, he goes to all these events that are focused on the fake political reality TV show that's going on. That, you know, just is like convincing people that they have a choice when they don't, basically. So it's like, he is, and that was a big part of why I stopped working with him, because I was just like, dude, why are you focusing on all this fake shit? Like I was like, dude, it was like I was like hella like woke at the time, like just like on 10. So I was just like, what are you doing, bro? And we ended up having a falling out, and I stopped working with him because of a bunch of stuff like this, like that, where I'm just like, why are you spending so much time going and, chasing after Hillary Clinton and things like this, when we're learning all this other stuff, that's way more important. And it shows that, we're all just, here, in this operation that they've been working on us for a long time. And like, this also brings to mind like the whole the Laurel Canyon conspiracy, with all the rock bands in the 60s, all the hippie bands. They're all like, they were all agents. They were all terrible bands to begin with. They were all awful, god awful bands that got big, like the Doors and like the Birds and the Mamas and the Pot. Like there were a bunch of bands that came out at the same time. None of them had any talent. They eventually put some shit together and like had some okay music, like anyone can really. But for the most part, terrible bands. I've been into rock music my whole life. Alley too. The Doors sucked. Oh my God. They're so bad. Like the Beach Boys, like all that stuff. These dudes were all army brats, military brats, they're like, hey, let's get our kids to run these ops, they keep it in the family type of thing. We'll make them famous. We'll let Hollywood make them famous. Everyone will listen to their lyrics, listen to the things that they're about. We'll vilify them in the media, and then no one will want to be anti-war because you'll be labeled a hippie, and that basically got rid of all the conservative anti-war people during Vietnam, was that op. And it's same kind of, it's all the same stuff where it's just like everyone's so gullible. I don't know. I just ranted for a while, so.
No, actually, what you were saying was making a lot of sense. I was enjoying listening. That actually makes a lot of sense that they'd get a bunch of bands together just to trick people, I could
No,
see
they all
that,
live,
providing information from a dozen different sources. And I mean, what's a
dude, search
dozen
it.
different? What?
Search it online. There's tons of information about it. It's called the Laurel. They all lived in the same neighborhood in Laurel Canyon, all recorded the same music with like all the same producers. And up in that canyon is a military installation where people think they shot the moon landing videos, is up in Hollywood. We rode up there on our bikes to go look at it. Jared Leto owns it now, but it's a massive.
Dude, that moon landing? Sorry, that moon landing though, that was fake as fuck.
Yeah. So there's footage of artificial moon in this studio that's like a wall-sized moon, a round moon with a camera pointed. Like there's some really like, where back in the day no one was questioning anything, but now we look at the footage and we're like, what is this? Like, holy crap, this is super obviously fake. But they have to keep it going because if they admitted this, then what else would they have to admit? So that's what the government, the powers that be, are kind of screwed right now. That's why they're having to use deep fake stuff, and they're having to make everyone's TVs like so high def that everything looks artificial. Basically, they're blurring the lines of like what looks real and what is real with the like AI deep fake stuff, and so like no one knows. Everyone just watches videos these days. Everyone just reads the headline, and no one really deep dives anything. So
I've kind of quit deep diving. Fucking, it just got so sickening after realizing how many times we've been lied to. These days, honestly, I hate to say it, like I read some, but not as much like into it. Because when somebody says the government's up to something, odds are like 99% that they are. And I'll just take their word for it and save myself some time. I hate to say it, but Jesus, there's some corrupt, crooked, lying bastards. I just assume the worst from them.
Yeah.
Sorry for the rant.
Yeah. So that's why I just like everyone's like, oh, you just think everything's fake. And it's like, yeah, man, like look at all that. Like it was like there was remember the Boston bombing? There was like some footage of someone with their leg blown off, like getting carted off. And like all these doctors, all these orthopedic doctors were like, that's not what the inside of a leg looks like, and it's like, once that kind of evidence comes to light, the whole thing is a hoax. You can't, because all these people were like, oh, that was, like they were trying to say that it didn't matter or something. And it was like, yeah, it matters. Because like if they fake one thing, then they're faking everything really, like, because it's all encompassed together. That's why they're having to like, that's why with all the flat earth stuff has been really fun watching the reaction from Hollywood, NASA. They're trying to cover their bases because they left a bunch of plot holes open, like, and all these internet sleuths, have looked at all the footage over and over and over again, are like, wait a minute, like, and like, why don't we have footage of this happening? And why don't we have footage of this happening? Wouldn't we have like tens of thousands of hours of like footage for everyone to look through if this was really happening? And we're putting $1 dollars, $5 gorillion into this program. Why don't we have like cameras pointed off of every corner of the space station all the time? Like, what is going on? How come they're so secretive? And then the footage they put out looks fake as shit, and then they like half-ass it because it's almost like they don't even care. They want people to get all crazy about it because it feeds the division going on in the country. Flat earth.
Well, yeah, they want to feed that division. Worse than anything, they want to feed the division, keep people confused and divided.
Yeah. But yeah, so all this stuff ties in, and it's well, I saw something the other day. They were using AI to like analyze the space footage, and the AI was just like, no. It was like, this is it was, and it's like, if the computers are getting that much better and AI is supposedly getting better, I don't think AI will actually ever be fully AI. I think you'll always have to program at some point. But I'm not like an AI doom and gloomer. But if this stuff's getting better, we're just going to use the internet and AI to debunk all this stuff. And it'll just kind of, I mean, it's going to be so old, no one's going to care. Who cares what they did in the 60s, like, which is, fair enough, but like, you still have to know how corrupt your handler is,
AI scares the hell out of me.
No,
I think we're going to have an iRobot scenario.
No, you don't have to be scared, John Bob.
It is what it is, Me being scared.
A human has to program everything. They're never going to have complete control.
You don't think at some point?
No, it's all Elon Musk doom and gloom BS. We need to leave this. We need to go to other planets and stuff like that because everything's gonna run amok here. We're gonna have Terminator, and that's why movies like Terminator exist, is to scare everyone. Like all these dudes, they're all funded to make these movies that are psychological ops on the community, on the population. Everyone uses, how often is that term, it's Terminator, like a Skynet, like everyone uses this stuff. Everyone, like it's why, the Germany, everyone, talks about Germany, as like the pinnacle of all evil. Like these things we've been trained to, it's like the bar has been set. So yeah, that's why I don't buy anything coming out of traditional media. Never have. I mean, I used to, obviously I used to buy all this stuff, and And that's why that's like whenever I interview people, like I talk to people, I'm like, how do we agree on so much yet disagree on this part? You know, this big thing where you seem like you know what you're talking about, but then you're completely giving all your faith over to the powers that be, to believe in this thing, you know, enough to like invest your own money in it, which is your money is your freedom, basically. You know, you got to look at it kind of that way these days. So like if you're investing a bunch of your money in space companies and space isn't real, like you're really screwing yourself. You know. So, you know, I don't, and it was funny because like in like 2012, I hung out with a bunch of dudes in Hollywood, and we used to do Ron Paul events, where like a bunch of, you know, like we'd have like politicians and stuff come by, and just like all kinds of people from the Hollywood area. And these dudes, my buddies, who were hardcore ANCAP liberty, well, they're ANCAP leaning, you know, like very interested in anarchy as well, but they were all caught up with jobs and paying taxes and shit. But they're very much libertarians. They're all just like going crazy about Elon Musk, and I was like, "Who is this guy?" And they showed me some footage of rocket testing, right? The landing rocket testing, and I was like, "That's fake, right off the bat. That's fucking fake. You guys are being duped." And it was like and ever since that day in 2012, I have seen every single thing I have seen about this guy or anything he has done is fake. It's always been like, there's not a doubt in my mind. Like I have a couple video analyzations that are just like, bro, they're duping you guys like hardcore. And all those same questions that apply to NASA apply to SpaceX. And obviously, you know, the old 60s, this is why they're like, they got rid of the shuttle, because they can't keep up the shuttles. Like the shuttle looks like a fucking, it's a freaking school bus with wings, you know, like they know people in 2025 aren't going to believe that the space shuttle's still going up there, that old space shuttle from the 50s, you know? So it's like they had to retire this stuff, and they had to bring like a newer, more popular, cool version of it, and that's SpaceX. And it's like people think that SpaceX is this independent, you know, like it's a private company, when it's a front for you know, big government's new NASA. Like Elon Musk is NASA 2.0.
Honestly,
you know,
it's a great theory, because that'd be controlled. That'd be controlled opposition, you know.
It's basically it's sky communism. Like it's crazy, like what he's pushing, and everybody's totally into it because everyone thinks he's cool, and so he's doing all this cool shit, but then he slides in the sky communism shit, and it's like everyone's like, yeah, sign me up. And it's like, hey fools, you guys are all anti-communists online, but you're stroking off this dude who's pushing sky communism. Like, holy crap. You know, you're gonna go live on Mars? Like that's gonna be like prison. Like you'll be locked in a box somewhere in the desert, thinking that you're in space when you aren't. You know, like it's all BS, and it's all so obviously BS. And it's like, you know,
I've got an interesting theory.
yeah.
What if Elon Musk is doing all this like augmented reality brain chip sort of stuff, and you know, space at the same time, so he can just basically have people get into a little, you know, what they're convinced is a rocket ship, you know, flick on that brain chip real quick, and just puts them out, like puts them in like a dream state, just carts them off somewhere, and like, you're in space now. Like that would be like the ultimate con.
Yeah.
I can totally see
Yeah,
that.
and they say they don't want us on TikTok, and they don't want us on these things, but those are the places where like all the bullshit's happening. You know, like people are passing around Joe Rogan deepfake videos like crazy right now, and everyone thinks they're real. You know, like because they're that good. So it's like, and then I've known about deepfake since 2011 or something. So like, how long did they have it before? You know, how many videos that we think are legit aren't? The other thing, I went to this Air and Space Museum in downtown. I took my kid there. And they have like footage running, and it's like really, 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 really obviously fake on the footage and the screens they have running at the Science Academy or the Science Museum. Like I was blown away by how bad it looked on their stuff, like their stock stuff. It looked like painfully like bad, like ET era CGI, you know. And you're just like, wow, like you guys, they're just shameless about it because they have a budget. You know, they got to stick to a budget. Everyone wants to make money, so they're spending the least amount of money keeping that shit up. You know, like they still all the like, you know, when they beam into like a news station, like all that stuff still looks fucking awful. Like it's not convincing to anyone who's like really, you know, open-mindedly looked at the stuff. It's just like, yeah, these people are bouncing around on cables, you know. It's absolutely nuts.
Yeah, that one video that you uploaded recently that was showing like the space station people like bouncing around, and it's like you could very obviously see that the dude, like a couple of the dudes were wearing those little like basically just bungee cords and just like flying back and forth trying to make it look like
it's basic acrobat stuff, and it's like it's stunt stuff. It's stuff that they use in the movies. You're wearing a harness, and it's just to black cables, and they just CGI out the cables. It's easy to do, but you can see the line. You can see the cables still in a lot of their footage. It's so bad. They have like, you know, who knows with these weird inbred Freemasons or something that they have working for NASA that they have doing these videos, you know, lying to everyone. They're obviously a part of the team because they know that they're duping everyone. They know they're not in space. But then you look at all these people and they're like really like sickly looking people, like not the most fit, smartest sounding, you know, like a lot of the people almost look inbred. Like it's really weird to me. Like I've been noticing this forever. I was like, what's up with all these haggard people up at the space station, you know? And it's like, if you're a part of some weird clique that's lying to the world, you know, that's what happens. People start inbreeding, you know, like you keep it in the club, like shit, the gene pool gets messed up over several generations. And we're getting to this generation and it's just like, dude, these aren't the best and brightest people that the world has to offer to be going into space. Like these people are like, it's just, you just look at them and you're like, what? Like, and then I guarantee you couldn't, if you hardcore researched, you know, a lot of these people, you just find dead ends, you know. They're just made, you know, and like that video showed all the people that blew up in the Challenger, they're all still around.
No. I heard about that. That's interesting though. I've noticed that on like some kind of different unrelated like research I've done is that, you know, that thing you're talking about with like leads, things just kind of disappearing. I've noticed that looking into certain things that like people getting into certain positions, if you like find them on like LinkedIn or something, like it would just be like completely normal, you know, background and everything. Then all of a sudden they're like, oh, they have this like paying position at this field. Like they just, you know, obviously being planted.
John Bob, quiet. You got to turn your mic down. It picks up everything. Or just mute when you're talking to your dog or something.
My sweetie is annoying me. I'm sorry, guys. I've been petting her for about 20 minutes and she just won't stop like pounding me for loving. Okay, I'm done. Sorry.
Muting up between talking is a very good a good practice if you're going to be YouTubing. Just anybody, just because the sound just gets worse when everyone's got their mic on and there's a little bit of background, like it gets kind of worse. So it's good if you're like, if you know you aren't going to be talking for a little bit, just to mute up. But yeah, John Bob's. Go ahead. Sorry, Braxton.
Oh, you're good. Yeah, pretty much just that point that there's just a lot of really suspicious like activity out there with people getting these strange careers out of nowhere. And then I was going to say to your point about like NASA people too, it's like, hate to say, but most of the people that you see out and about wearing any kind of like NASA merch they're not the best looking people. I mean, as far as even
Or
if
they're just NPCs. They're just like
Yeah.
they're just college students,
you can
and
tell there's
like
not much going on up there. They
yeah,
might
they've
look
been
normal.
institutionalized. They're like thoroughly institutionalized. Some
Yeah.
of us, and like I thought NASA was super cool until I didn't think it was cool anymore, and I started researching it and was like, oh, they could have easily pulled this off on us, and like people are like, oh, it's gonna be so hard to do that, and it's like, no, it's not. As long as there's a hierarchy of information in the world, which there is in the United States, you're lending, you're having faith that the people are telling you the truth about what's going on in the world. Bill Gates owns more cattle than anyone in the world. I don't know what Blue Bass is trying to say, that he pushes veganism. But
the guy pushes everything because he's selling everything as he's forcing injections of heavy metal. But I will tell you this, he's claiming we got duped because we're eating plants. You're eating chemically reacted corpses that give you worms, dude. Who's really duped?
That are also vaccinated, that also eat way more pesticides. They completely destroy the land wherever they go. Like there's not a single good thing going in that camp.
Dude, it's bad. Meat eaters are betas. They literally flood their body with estrogen, literally using saturated fats and cholesterol, clogging their own arteries and shrinking their own genitalia as they like try and talk shit to the vegans. It's weird, dude.
Blue Bass, how does that make any sense? Bill Gates is one of the largest owners of cattle in the world. So why would he be so in the business of cattle if he doesn't want people to eat cows? That doesn't make any sense, dude. He's got cow farms all around the world.
Yeah, the only way I could really see that, like,
definitely owns more cows than your buddy Garland Farms.
Yeah, the only way I could really see that being feasible, like the whole thing of like them trying to hoard, is like that same mentality that kings lived to be really fat and like really unhealthy, and they were eating all those really gluttonous foods, and so it just reflected on how tyrannical they were, how like willing to execute people just like that. It's like we're kind of getting a lot of that with the carnivore folks.
Yeah,
not too much of a coincidence.
And speaking of carnivore folks, this video is quite the doozy. I don't know if you guys know about my history with Joey Schwartz, but me and Durian Rider and Nutrivore just like triple destroyed this guy several months ago. And I had the last conversation with him where I definitely like pointed out a bunch of hypocrisy coming from him, and he ended up changing the name of his show, and now he's making videos telling people he's high carb and fruit and rice and sugar is actually good for you, which is really funny because I had a 2-hour debate with him about how high carbs, a high carb vegan is the way to go. And he said that everyone should only eat eggs, drink milk, and eat innards. And I told him he was going to get scurvy. And a couple weeks after our debate, he got scurvy and he got really sick and he disappeared, just like Garland Farms disappeared, got sick and disappeared after he had a debate with me. And then Joey popped back up in Mexico trying to be like a Lambo bro and like try and sell like motivational how to make money and end up living in Mexico, even though he's like a trust fund kid.
Manifestation, bro.
Yeah. And so Joe, me and Joey, like we're going back and forth. We did a pretty big discussion, and then we went on the that debate channel, The Crucible, and Joey was being so unruly that the debate was called off by the moderator, because he just wasn't engaging in the debate. He just wanted to be he just wanted to argue. And so, it was pretty interesting. Next week on the show, we're having a guy named High Carb Regenerator on. He's a YouTube guy. He's like a Doreen Rider protocol guy. Dude was like 450 pounds or something at one point, and has been on Doreen Rider protocols. And I think he's like 280 now or something like that. But big bodybuilder guy, or he's 6 foot, but he's like, his arms are bigger than my torso. But anyway, he's got a pretty decent YouTube channel, High Carb Vegan channel. But he's gonna come up, and we're gonna talk about some shit next week. And then after that, I'm gonna try and get Chris Hines back on, and Doreen Rider. And I want to try and get a hold of McDougal too, because I want to either like interview him or have him come on the show, just because I'm one of his like first prototypes. But where did I just went on a complete tangent. What was I talking about earlier, Braxton? Oh, Joey Schwartz.
Yeah.
So Joey. Yeah. So we all got in Joey's head pretty well. And when I was talking to Joey about doing the debates, he was like picking my brains about like conspiracy stuff. He seems like he was like really into the conspiracy stuff, and how the government is using, our diets against us and all this shit. And I was just like, dude, like we could probably do a lot of work, because I'm like the conspiracy guy. I don't believe anything's real, and like you got super fresh eyes on this whole thing, so it'd be interesting to hear your anyway. But then like he didn't like how the debates turned out, because I had made him look really silly over and over and over and over again. So he stopped talking to me. He did I did hit him up recently about doing the MMA match, and he posted out. He was like, let's just play mini golf or something, and I'm like, what the fuck. But anyway, so High Carb Regenerator did a review of this video, and I watched the first few minutes, the first like 10 minutes of it, and I was like, oh my god, like it's like I'm hearing myself talk through him. It's pretty funny. But why I quit the carnivore diet, and all the reasons why he quit.
So I want to make a video on why I quit the carnivore diet. And you all know that I'm not doing it anymore, and I've alluded to it in every video. I have made what I eat in a day, which clearly includes plants, but I haven't given a full, thorough breakdown on YouTube as to why I quit, exactly what my thought process was, how I was doing throughout that entire period, and just general things like that I feel like have been glossed over, and I should definitely hone in on, especially as carnivore gets more popular, and as I just see it more and more on the internet. But so let's go back. Let's go back to where it all started, right? It all started back with my senior year of high school, where I wasn't feeling too good. I was tired a lot. I was getting those afternoon crashes, and I was like, okay, you know what? I need to find something different. And so I ended up finding carnivore. I did carnivore for like 2 years. And this was when I was, 17? Maybe 17, 16 or 17? 17. And I was still growing, developing, getting stronger, bigger, taller. And what I thought was the carnivore diet enhancing every single aspect of my life is like, especially when in athletic performance, I was getting really good at soccer.
Oh, you're muted.
One of the first points I pointed out to Joey in our discussion was he in his videos, he's like, oh, since I started eating meat all the time, my voice has gotten deeper. And I was like, bro, you're in puberty. Of course your voice is getting deeper. That's not because you're eating innards, dude. Like, it was like stuff like that. And he's like, oh yeah, I only shit once every 5 days. And I'm just like, holy shit, dude, like diverticulitis, like look it up. Like you're gonna, like, it's not gonna be good, and you're 19, like don't ruin your body this quick by eating this stuff. And then I talked to him about scurvy and vitamin C. I was like, how could you cut out vitamin C from your diet, bro? You're scared of vitamin C? Because he was like still really on the like he's just another one of these drones, these carnivore doctor drones that just repeats everything that these guys say, and it's all about the Maasai, and it's like, dude, go look up all the studies that have been done on the Maasai. They're all horrendously unhealthy, like, and it's public information, it's all out there, like, it's just. And so I'd watched a bunch of his videos before our debate, and so I had a bunch of things locked and loaded that I knew he was going to say. Like he talks about how the megafauna were really slow, so we didn't need carbs because the megafauna were really slow and they were really easy to catch. Animals were easy to catch. We don't have to run after them for a long time ever. And so he said that 100 times in his videos. And so like I looked up how fast the woolly mammoth used to run, and it was like, oh, they're like pushing 40 miles an hour. So it's like, so I backed him into a couple corners that really pissed him off. I need to do a super edit of the video because he stutters and repeats himself so many times because he's just like, he wasn't ready, and he didn't prepare. He didn't like have a opening statement or anything. But anyway, I'll get back to the video.
Wait, before you go back,
Yeah.
quick. How fast do they fucking run? Out of curiosity, it'll drive me nuts.
Like over 30 miles an hour, which a human can only run like 6 to 8 miles an hour. Obviously, having carbohydrates, if we're gonna say that everyone was hunting back in the day, you'd need carbs to chase animals down after wounding them, like things like that. I was trying to like get him to agree, and he's just like, no, and it's like, dude, you're 19, bro, like you don't know what you're talking about.
People are probably chilling out eating carbs, like waiting for like stalking the prey and like going like chilling in some bushes, like
no, absolutely everybody was eating in California. They were eating acorn meal. There's mortars, there's holes in rocks all over California. We find them everywhere where they ground their acorn and made acorn patties that they would eat. And they were moving around with the seasons for the fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Like no one wants to go out, get up in the morning, go out and go have to risk their life to fight some animal. Like that's not like these people are like, oh yeah, everyone used to just go out and like they'd be like partying about it and all happy. And it's like, no, that's not fun to go have to do that whole thing. Like that's not fun. Only certain people are like, only certain weirdos, are around to deal with those kinds of things. I don't know. It's just weird.
The guy
Devin's definitely getting us demonetized today. But yeah, so back to Joey. Joey's just been the walk. Oh, he was such low-hanging fruit. It's been so fun because he's a noob, he's a life noob.
But I was also playing every single day, so it kind of makes sense why I was getting better regardless. But anyway, I thought that the carnivore was this miracle drug. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that the power of the mind shouldn't ever be doubted. You can convince yourself of anything, any diet. This is why some vegans can actually survive. Right? Nobody survives on a vegan diet if they think it's bad for them. That would be the number one thing that would fuck them up. But I thought carnivore was the answer for everything. And so I attributed every single good thing in my life to carnivore. And
that's a fallacy right there. I've known plenty of vegans that didn't think that their version of veganism was the healthiest thing. I've met plenty of unhealthy vegans that they're just in it for the animals, solely, that just like eat garbage all day. This assumptions of what we think and what we do and what we eat, like these people like thrive off of that. They have nothing else but assumptions.
Well, vegans in general are such a broad spectrum of people. I mean,
Yeah.
we have every type of person. It's not like we fit in a classification, you know?
What's interesting is the veganism movement in the United States is mostly around due to hardcore music in the 90s, vegan hardcore music and vegan straight edge kids, which was like, it was like a, I don't know, it was, I don't know if you guys know what straight edge is, but it was like a big movement in the 90s that had like certain heavy metal music connected to it, but there was a big genre of vegan straight edge music and Krishna core, Hare Krishna bands that were like heavy metal bands, but singing about Hare Krishna and veganism and stuff like that. And that's really like outside of that, that there's been nothing that's really brought veganism to the mainstream since the internet, like pre-internet days. Like there was it was just like old hippie ladies and young tattooed heavy metal kids. It was really funny. Me and my friends used to travel all over the West Coast to going to little vegan restaurants in like 94. And the people would just be like, oh wow, like 20 kids just came in and they're all like crazy heavy metal kids. And they're like in love with the food and super nice. And you know, it was like really fun to be a part of when I was a kid, instead of like doing drugs and alcohol. But yeah,
Sounds like a
veganism.
pretty fun scene.
Yeah, Chris Hines's video, his movie, his documentary he's doing is about how hardcore brought veganism to the mainstream, or how music in general, not necessarily hardcore specifically, but it's all about the music that brought it to the mainstream. Which I remember even before I was like growing up as a kid, like no identifying vegetarian songs or like weird stuff like that. Lyrics, vegan lyrics and songs. But anyway, back to Joey Schwartz. Joey Schwartz.
It got a little bit out of control when I started to realize that I actually wasn't as healthy as I thought. I wasn't as strong as I thought, and I was actually kind of suffering. I didn't talk about this publicly, but I did some blood tests, and like there were definitely results in there that weren't
this is your
very
boy.
good. And since then, they've gotten insanely good, like insane, like top percentages. But it was fucked at one point. And I didn't talk about this, and I don't know. Maybe I'll go into it more. Like I'll show the actual data at some point. But for now, I'm just gonna. You guys are just gonna have to take my word for it, because I've been super transparent my whole time online. I'm not here to lie to anyone or just convince anyone that something is wrong that's right, or something that's right that's wrong. I'm just trying to be honest and tell my own story. And
trying to come
so
clean
carnivore
is what
was
he's trying to
fucking me up, basically. Like in short, like that's the truth. It was really messing me up. And in retrospect, it kind of makes sense why. My family was not a low carb family by any means. Like our ancestry is not low. Like nothing about me should be low carb at all, right? My grandparents, it's lots of breads, it's lots of potatoes, obviously organic, like high quality stuff, fruits, and my family all has sweet tooths. It didn't make sense looking back for me to thrive on a low carb diet, but I was doing carnivore not because of what my recent ancestors did, but because I thought that way back in time, like Homo sapiens, like after Australopithecus was eating fruit, grabbing from the trees, that okay, we were carnivores, right? Like we've been carnivores for a million years. Why on earth would I eat plants that haven't been around until the agricultural revolution, which was just a tiny fraction of our existence on Earth? This is my thinking. It doesn't matter what my great grandmother ate.
Another point I made to him. I brought up paintings of fruit in the 1200s or something, right? Fruits and vegetables paintings. He was trying to say that the fruits and vegetables now are completely different than they were pre-agricultural revolution, which is what, 1900s. So I'm like, Joey, when did they change all the vegetables and fruit? And he's just all, and I start pulling these pictures up from the 1200s, and it's like pineapple, apples, bananas, it's like all these fruit and vegetables that look just like they do now. Like I stomped on this kid so hard. It was so funny. So it's funny to see him, still kind of saying this stuff but he's like look at his face as he says it. He's like, it's like it's something he has to repeat because that's something he's always repeated, and it's like he's got to kind of make it seem like he's still, like he's not completely changing his tune on everything, but the dude's flip-flopped completely. I mean, not completely, he's not vegan, but at least with the carbs and the I went after him because he was a carnivore. So, mission accomplished.
Yeah, she ate potatoes and meats and soups and lived till 104, but that didn't make sense. You could live to 130 if you eat carnivore, people used to do in the olden days, right? Like way back before agricultural revolution. But
yeah, because
now that's a fairy tale. That whole story of evolving, becoming from monkeys, this and that and the other, that's a fairy tale that is not true.
Oh, so Joey's pushing the God shit now really hard. He wasn't doing this as much before, but because he's like a Trumper. So I think he's taken this whole like, oh, we aren't monkeys, so we shouldn't eat like the monkeys thing, which is kind of funny with his Lambo bro thing he's doing. Scamming people basically.
True at all whatsoever. None of that's true. We didn't evolve like that. That is an atheistic belief that is there to take people away from God and religion, to take people away from any sort of divine force. If you believe that we came from monkeys, you need to seriously reevaluate your own perspective and understanding of life in the world, because that is a terrible way to think, and it's so wrong. So now that I understand what I know, if I could go back in time, I would have never done carnivore. I would have never been carnivore, because I know that that's not how humans developed. We weren't eating raw meat and then we started cooking our meat because we got smarter and our brains got bigger, and that's all bullshit. That's not a real story. And humans are the chosen ones. We are not like any other animal on Earth. We are not insignificant. We are the Earth is for humans. We are everything. We are.
Did you see how you could tell Joey said chosen ones 1,000,000 times in his life? Joey Schwartz.
Oh.
Chosen ones.
Oh.
It rolled off his tongue so eloquently. He said it 1,000,000 times, but in a different context.
I wonder why that is.
Check the back of his head.
Oh.
But we are life, and everything is just there for us. Everything is here for us. We are but when you're carnivore and you're following this whole belief system, you think everything is random. You think it's just like, okay, this is how things turned out. We were fish, and then we became monkeys, and then we became whatever the next thing is, and humans and apes, and that's the thinking. So you think everything is just, let's just go back in time and use the history books. But that's not how we can actually do things. That doesn't work. That's not true at all. That's complete denial of the truth and the actual existence of God. So I understand this now, but I didn't understand this then. And at this time, I was really starting to struggle on carnivore. And so I added back in carbs.
Out on the light.
Now, there was a lot of, I've been doing research on carnivore for years, guys. If you think about this, I mean, I was making 6-7K a month on my channel. Like, it was my main source of income. I was trying to leave UCLA. Of course, I wanted it to be real. Of course, I wouldn't have left carnivore if I didn't think that I needed to, but I did need to. But I was researching a shit ton in that whole time. Like, it was all that I focused on. It was all that I was doing. Watching videos, watching the carnivore channels, reading books, reading research papers. And I accumulated a lot of knowledge in defense of the idea that carnivore is the best diet for humans. I got a lot of knowledge. And some of those things include the ideas that all animals are in ketosis. They all produce ketones. Things like there are groups who thrive on only animal products. And there's just a lot more stuff, like carbohydrates being poisonous, plants having anti-nutrients, just a lot of stuff that I can recite like it's nothing, because I studied it so hard. I studied it more than anything else in my entire life. And now I understand that there's a huge, very strong and true rebuttal to all these points, because carnivore is not an inherently bad diet, but it's a bad diet for certain people in certain situations. For example, if you are a developing child in the heart of Los Angeles with Eastern European ancestry, you should not be a carnivore, point blank. You should not. No chance. Because your ancestry is acclimated to consuming grains, to consuming starches, and organic local fruits, as well as meat, high quality raw dairy which has tons of carbs. There's so many carbs in raw milk, right? This is all.
So yeah, I told him that. I was like, bro, you're drinking carbs right in front of me right now when he was drinking milk, and he's like, oh, it's not that much. I'm like, dude, there's like 12 grams of sugar in milk. Like that's a lot. But Joey's trying to say that like if your mom didn't eat it, you shouldn't eat it because there's a generational gap and you're not acclimated, which is complete horseshit. Certain people.
Oh, sorry. You go, bud.
Oh, I wasn't going to say anything.
All stuff that should be consumed by somebody in that situation. Whereas somebody in Siberia, it's a different story. If you're in Siberia, then you only have meat at certain months of the year. That's totally fine. You need the extra fat. You need meat for
Mike's kind of quiet, by the way,
you
John.
need carbs because they're not there. I mean, you need milk, which has tons of carbs in itself, but you're not going to eat starches and plants and stuff.
Mike's kind of quiet.
I need carbs. I definitely need them. I cannot be on a zero carb diet because it fucked everything up for me. It fucked shit up. I'm just going to leave it at that. But back to these things that I was studying, right? All animals are in ketosis. Well, we are not like all animals. And there's a reason why there are no natural groups at all that are in ketosis. Maybe animals, sure. Maybe monkeys and cows. Cows will take grass, ferment it, and then they'll produce ketones. That's great, but not humans. Because humans, all the natural groups, Hansa, Nicoya, any centenarian group, the people in the Mediterranean, these groups throughout Italy who live a super long time, these are not low-carb groups at all. None of them. The only ones who had some success with low carbs were Inuit. And crazy thing is, Inuit can't even get into ketosis. That's the crazy thing. So everyone points to the Inuit as this group that shows the power of the carnivore diet when the Inuit cannot even get into ketosis. This was almost certainly an adaptation they made in order to offset the negative effects of a zero-carb diet. They can't get into ketosis, so they make their own sugars because it's a clear sign that long-term ketosis, prolonged ketosis, would lead to the ultimate termination of their civilization. They wouldn't be able to procreate anymore. It's basically an anti-fertility diet in many cases. The Inuit are a testament to this. Why would it be? And this is what I want people to actually explain to me if I'm wrong here. Why would it be that carnivore is the optimal diet for everyone if there is an adaptation in the Inuit that selects against the continuation of being able to get into ketosis? Why would that be the case? Why is it that the Maasai consume raw milk? They consume tons of carbs through raw milk and blood. Probably more carbs than the average American does. Why would they do that? Why would the Hunza, who are known to live into their 160s, consume breads and consume grains and apricots, as well as tons of raw dairy products? They have a high-carb diet. A lot of these groups have high-carb diets, and Nicoya a high-carb diet. Why would this be the case? And this is not to make fun of the carnivores, because I did it for 2 years. I'm not trying to be a dick or anything, but I'm genuinely, I really want to have this conversation and kind of start this but back up again, because it doesn't make sense to me. Like, somebody make it make sense. None of these groups are doing low carb, none of them. So if carbs are so poisonous, if they're so toxic, why are these groups still thriving in spite of consuming high carb diets? I don't understand. Right? If humans are supposed to be so good on only meat, why did I feel like shit? Why did it fuck me up at the end? Right? And now, guys, I feel better than I've ever felt before. I look better. Like, everything is good in my life right now. And yeah, I started to get outside more. I left a stressful environment, which was UCLA. I made a lot of good changes to my life. I started, and one of those big changes that I made was I started to eat more plant foods, more carbs.
Damn, that was
that's really what I started to do. And I felt my energy go up a lot. I felt like hormonally I was way better off, libido better, stronger, like everything better.
Yep.
And I don't think that you can say that it's because I did it incorrectly when I was literally one of the pioneers in carnivore. Nobody was doing carnivore better than me, to be like, and I'm no bullshit. Like, I was doing it perfect. I tried the fasting thing. I tried eating a shit ton, like bowls and bowls of grass finished tallow. I was eating some organs rarely, right? Like, in moderation. When I craved it, only when I craved it, I would eat organs. I would eat some cooked, sometimes raw, like, and all of the highest quality stuff with cuts around the bones to get the optimal collagen ratio. Like, I was doing it right, guys, and it still fucked me up because my body was so stressed out trying to make carbohydrates out of proteins, which is a stressful process. Gluconeogenesis is a stress-provoking process that I didn't need to put myself through.
Not
And
natural.
I'm so glad I did carnivore still. I'm so glad I did it because if I hadn't done it, I would never have gone to the point where I'm at now, where I feel like I'm way closer to the truth. The only thing that's going to bring us closer to the truth is making mistakes. But at the same time, I think it's a little bit of a frightening message that carnivore is a solution to everything. And guys, you guys all know this. I did so many carnivore interviews. I did so many of them. So many incredible success stories. People who were sick, who had
They were
like
lying.
epilepsy, like everything you could imagine, like everything. I interviewed them, and I did great interviews too. There were great
Oh,
interviews,
yeah.
great success stories, and so I'm not oblivious to the potential for the carnivore diet to be extremely therapeutic. I understand that, but I also understand now that depriving yourself of carbohydrates is not the solution in most cases.
That's
But
right.
depriving yourself of carbohydrates that are sprayed with pesticide, of carbohydrates that are refined, of carbohydrates that are infused with red 40 and dyes and artificial sweeteners and things like that, that makes more sense to me. I think the reason why the carnivore diet is so effective for so many people is not because of the fact that they're eating more meat or that they're eating less carbs, but they're eating less toxins. I mean, meat is incredibly nutritious. It is the most important part of the human diet by far, no doubt about it. However, when you take out carbohydrates, you are not seeing a benefit because you don't have sugar anymore. You're seeing a benefit because you took off a bunch of garbage. Now, between the three macronutrients, we have fats, proteins, and carbs. The industrialization of food, okay, in other words, food becoming more centralized, less small farms, more large agriculture, more glyphosate, things of that nature. The industrialization of food was most problematic for carbs. Why is that? Well, let's take an animal, let's take a cow. You feed a cow pesticide sprayed grains, it's going to be able to get rid of some of that. It's not all going to assimilate in its tissues. Some of it, yes, you're going to get some pesticide, but cows also are ruminants. They
That's
have two stomachs. They
grass-fed.
can filter a lot of that shit out. Humans, not so much. So when you have your carbs, your fats, your proteins, the fats and proteins obviously being prevalent in the animal foods, well, what do we have going on here? We have fats and proteins that are then filtering out a bunch of pesticide much better than humans are. Whereas with carbohydrates, we're going direct to the source of toxins. The animals that came as a product of industrialization have less toxins, whereas the plants have more. Fruits, bananas, honeys, starches, grains, all these things are super high poison when grown industrially. That's the problem, guys. It's the fact that we have all of these plant foods that are grown in such a toxic manner. And so now all of a sudden when you remove them, you're way healthier because your body isn't being given toxins anymore. Sure, it's a little bit more stressed out. It has to now produce sugar from nothing.
How do you filter it out
from
without
proteins.
fiber?
However, it's a lot better off to be a little bit more stressed out, a little bit higher cortisol maybe, with less toxins than it is to have more toxins and have that little lower stress response from the presence of carbohydrates. Now, this is my theory. This is what I believe to be true. And again, none of us know the answer for sure. There's not a single answer for everyone either, right? We know for sure that the best diet for people, regardless of what your macronutrient breakdown is going to be local foods. You want to eat local foods. You don't want to eat New Zealand lamb if you're in Idaho, right? You don't want to eat Costa Rican bananas if you're in Pennsylvania. You don't want to eat bananas if you're in London either. Like, these is very simple principles that people want to follow. Eat local foods, right? If it's just meat, it's just meat. But if it's plants, eat local plants. And this is the real remedy. It's eating local organic foods. It's not.
No, it's not. This fool, dude. Having access to foods from all over is what it's all about. Like, that's ridiculous. Like,
more balance.
Yeah. And you're getting, like, what if you're nowhere near anything volcanic, and the soil's not great. So you eat all this soil depleted stuff because it's local. Like that's ridiculous. Like Joey doesn't
Plus,
know what he's talking about.
biodiversity,
But
you gotta have biodiversity.
John Bob, now you're a little bit too low.
Do you have the auto
How's that?
Check.
quiet?
No, I'm yelling. How's that?
A little bit better.
No, I'll turn it up a little more.
Turn it up a little more.
How about that?
Didn't really change much.
Yeah, it's
God damn it, John Bob.
Now it's
What up,
all the way
Devin?
up. I'm gonna buy a new phone this week. Then we won't have this phone.
Oh, am I actually on here? I think the comment's blocking me.
No, you've been here.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah,
Hey, yo, so I got a vegan win announcement. I don't know if
Oh,
you guys know about the fur fight. Neiman Marcus, they went back on their fur-free policy last week.
Oh
And
shit.
yeah, and so the activists came out in droves. In about 4 days, they did like 8 big protests across all different cities, and they waved the white flag. They gave up. They
That's
announced
cool.
fur-free policy again.
They probably thought they'd just do it and let them get away with it, and
Yeah, like nobody would notice.
Yeah, that's so dope.
Yep.
Good job, dude.
That's a good win.
Yep, good for the animals for sure.
Yeah. The
What's
foxes,
up, Jeremy
the mink.
Gord? Is Gord gonna come up for the first time?
Gord.
Ben missing his cooking show, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I came in with the gunsmithing show instead.
Yeah.
Yeah. We get a different hobby on every show.
Yeah, I got the arm on the top of my head.
YouTube, this is just a Call of Duty replica.
Yeah. It's airsoft.
Yeah. He's a really big 3D printer.
Not basing your diet off of a particular macronutrient ratio. And my great grandmother, she lived so long, and then the reason why I believe she lived so long is because, well, she grew up in New York, and from a young age, they ate lots of sweets. Yeah, they ate breads, candies, not candies, but like breads, cakes, cheesecakes, all that stuff. But what are they using for it? Right? What are they using for bread? They're using the yeast, the organic. Everything is organic. It's organic flour, it's organic. Everything is organic. And it's high quality mineralized soils that are providing the actual raw products. Whereas today, you eat a loaf of bread, you're getting folic acid, which is going to completely poison you. Okay? You're getting a bunch of added preservatives. You're getting inorganic grain, which is known to be insanely toxic due to the high glyphosate content. You're really setting yourself up for failure. But if you eat it back when it was healthy for you, it's not going to mess it up, because this is food that is just food. It's just from the earth. It's nature. It doesn't have any additives. It doesn't have any pesticides. Nowadays, when you take out all the plant foods and you just eat Costco or Walmart ground beef, you're eating a lower toxic load. But if you bring in back the organic sourdough, you bring back in whatever organic grains and oats and things that you like, potatoes, rice, whatever you like that's local to you, you don't get sick from that. You actually improve your health because now your body isn't stressed out anymore. And again, just quickly back to my great-grandmother. So she grew up eating all these high-quality foods, tons and tons of meats. They ate lots of brains and thyroids and, stuff around the bones. They were great cooks, livers, all that stuff. And that's what she ate throughout her entire life. And even as food started to become
her whole
worse
life.
at the grocery store, they start to inject the meat with more garbage and they do more bad stuff to the meat. She's still going to the farmer's market. And pretty much up to the point she died,
Just
she
the
would
gnarliest
walk
diet.
from kind of the Westwood area into Santa Monica with her cart, fill up her cart at the Westwood or at the Santa Monica farmer's market on Wednesdays, which is there like every Wednesday from 9 a.m. to 1. She would go do that. She would go back home on her cart and she would only eat that food. She wasn't eating grocery store garbage. She was eating from the farmer's market. And she lived a very long time because intuitively she knew well, I want to eat the food that I was eating when I was a little girl, when I was younger. Yeah, she ate cakes. Yes, she made breads, but it was the highest quality stuff that's not poisonous. High quality food from the earth, if it's around you, is not going to be poisonous to your body. And I think this is the biggest lesson that I've learned on carnivore. Again, not to bash the diet or bash anyone who's doing it. I think it's a part of the journey, and I also think that when you immerse yourself in a very cult-like environment, like carnivore, where everyone has like the cult leaders, like the YouTubers who are doing the most,
Like you,
then it's also very reassuring because everyone gets a lot more success from things when you have people around you doing it, as opposed to just doing it alone. Like pioneering a new diet is hard, and it's probably not going to work for you because you're nervous and you don't know if it's going to work and you're questioning yourself. But when you have all these success stories on carnivore, and rightfully so, they're so legit, rightfully so. But when you have all these success stories that are all saying that carbs are the demon, carbs are the problem, and that carbs are associated with all these diseases, it's the wrong message. It's a way easier way to explain why people are sick. It's very easy to just blame it on one thing. It's only carbs, that's it. You make it a lot harder on yourself. It's a lot more complex of an issue when you say, no, we're not sick because of carbs. We're sick because of toxic, injected, sick animals that we then eat the meat of and the dairy products of. We're sick because of all this agriculture using pesticides and processing the foods and doing this and that and the other. And because of big agriculture and big pharma teaming up together to make a toxic food supply. That is a harder problem to solve than just saying, nope, it's carbs. It's carbohydrates. That's why you're sick and fat. It's an
Actually
easy
pretty
thing to say,
simple,
but it's
bro.
not true. And it doesn't, people who say
Stop
they're not operating within reality. They're operating under this false idea that we evolved from monkeys, that protein and fat are all that we need, and that people shouldn't be eating any plant food. And that's basically what I wanted to say, guys. Right now, my diet, I would say it's a lot of raw dairy. It's a lot of meat still. Obviously, meat is the pinpoint. It's the most important part of the diet. But I also eat, like I'm in Mexico right now, like we'll eat organic tortillas. We'll eat organic rice and potatoes every now and then. But it's mostly duck eggs and meats and raw dairy.
they're
raw
organic.
chocolate milk sometimes. So my diet is
assuming
very
they're
high
organic.
quality food. It's a
They
good
use
diet.
tons of pesticides in Mexico.
But it's not low carb by
They
any
just don't
means.
use. They
I'm
just
not eating
don't
low
do
carb.
GMO.
And there's a trend right now in the health space. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but there's a very obvious trend right now, and the trend is
Yeah. So in Mexico, they can't afford not to use pesticides. They don't have traditional organic farming like Joey's saying they do. He's just, oh, there it's all non-GMO here, therefore it's organic, which is complete bullshit.
He also went out of his way to claim a couple times that corpse is less toxic. It's almost as if he doesn't know what bioaccumulation is, and that corpse actually has about 100 times the chemicals at once.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that
And
makes sense.
they animals take more pharmaceuticals and ingest more crops that are sprayed with pesticides than anything.
It's true.
Yeah.
Sorry, the comments are getting pretty wild tonight.
that people are moving more towards a holistic lifestyle that mimics that of their great grandmother. It's not the carnivore diet.
Everyone is doing that, Joey.
20,000 years ago by warriors or whatever. I don't know what they think. Whatever the fuck. It's not that. The diet, the thing that's going mainstream right now in the health space is mothers on farms and homesteads eating sourdough bread and raw butter on it. That's what's getting popular right now. It's the way that people used to live and eat.
When I did the debate with Joey, he had 26,000 subscribers. He's got 18,000 now. Ouch.
Yeah, and he still needs to take that carnivore out of his name.
Yeah.
Doesn't get to wear that badge.
That's becoming mainstream. It's the carnivore Aurelia stuff. Even the Ray Peat ideas are starting to really gain traction. You know, people are starting to realize, hey, it's not sugar that's the problem. Like it's not.
Ray Peat was vegan in the end. Right, babe?
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, Ray Peat recommended less meat and or vegetarianism before he passed.
not putting a little bit of sugar in your coffee or a little bit of like sugar in your ice cream or something that's the problem.
Sugar in your ice cream.
That's not it. It's the fact that these
pour
foods
sugar in your
nowadays
ice
are so
cream? That's a
toxic.
good idea.
And it's just a further emphasizing the importance of eating organic. Guys, even I eat ice cream nowadays. I do eat ice cream. Like in the morning, maybe I'll have some chocolate milk, some cheese.
So
I'll have
guys,
some tartare for lunch with some sourdough.
So guys, the last 2,000 videos I did, don't watch them.
For dinner, I'll have like a pork chop or a steak or something, and I'll have raw ice cream afterwards. Or not, I don't even think it's
raw ice cream. Yeah,
but it'll be
throwing
like
that name on everything.
Cream,
Joey.
it'll be milk, it'll be some eggs, it'll be sugar, it'll be some chocolate, like cacao powder or whatever. And
he's like just throwing organic and fucking raw on everything. Just because he's in Mexico and he thinks that it's more farmy like back there.
Yeah.
Crazy. Lou Bass, this is your boy. What are you talking about? This is the poster child. You told me you liked Joey. Now he's wrong.
Some infighting going on.
I think that's healthy. I genuinely do.
Conscience.
I think that's something that people could definitely benefit from eating, right? Because sugar still has nutrients in it. Sugar is still going to help your body facilitate the production of hormones and prevent it from going into gluconeogenesis, where it's going to start consuming its own tissues, that sort of thing. So this is probably really shocking to a lot of you, this idea that you can actually consume sugar and still be healthy, when there was this whole idea that, no, the reason why we're sick is because of sugar, refined grains, seed oils. Seed oils and sugar are not in the same category. These sugar and seed oils are not the same thing. They're very different. Seed oils are processed and refined and toxic. Sugar is not toxic. Sugar is a plant that's hardly processed, and you can get unprocessed sugar, unrefined sugar as well. It's organic. So this is kind of the conclusion that I've come to. I'll do what I eat in a day videos if you guys want. And I'm really happy to do that and go over that stuff. But I'm seeing a lot of people wake up. A lot of people start to incorporate plants back, kind of following Paul Saladino, who's right on a lot of things, but he also believes in evolution, which is ridiculous.
Oh my god!
But that's kind of like I'll make more.
Paul Carnivore MD's eating rice now, telling people to eat rice, fruit, honey.
Straight up
he's the carnivore doctor. He's still called the carnivore doctor. This was the conversation I had with Joey, because Joey before was the carnivore camaraderie guy, but then he's like, oh, I was like, nothing you're eating is carnivore. What are you talking about? And he's like, oh, I'm not really carnivore. And it's like, then why is your name carnivore camaraderie? Like, you see that doesn't make sense, right? Well, people are coming to you for carnivore diet advice, yet you're not carnivore because you flip-flop every day on things. And then like a week later, he changed his name to Joey Primal or something like that. Or to Joey Schwartz, and then he changed it to Joey Primal. It's like, dude, you're gonna lose everyone doing that shit. He should have just kept the carnivore.
He's carnivore adjacent.
No, I literally caused him to change his name, which is YouTube suicide, dude. Like, mission fucking accomplished. If he would have just kept that, he would have kept getting people no matter what. He was in the algorithm was set. But once you change your name on YouTube, it's YouTube channel suicide, and his channel's tanked ever since. It's hilarious. And what happened to Garland, JD Garland? Where's that guy?
He's done his little walk of shame a couple times on the show, but
I think he wants to make believe that we don't exist anymore.
Yeah. I mean, what's
camaraderie?
Yeah, what's been going on with, like, I don't know, all these people always talking about they want to debate, but like,
no,
haven't seen any debates since the Garland farm days, and they were acting like they still had smoke.
No, they don't got nothing. These dudes get pretty. Vegan, your average vegan is at the caliber these days that they can just pwn anyone, and it's like these dudes keep getting up like against, like Vegan Gains and like it's just no, Vegan Gains is kind of, I don't know, like he can get kind of off the deep end sometimes, but it's just, there's too much, it's hard not, like, it's hard to look at your side losing, you know, and like want to go up and be the next guy to get like knocked down, you know, like, and especially with there's everyone's quitting carnivore now, you know, like everyone's quitting carnivore. There's all these videos why I quit carnivore. It's the new thing, but they're all saying vegans are all quitting, yet, you know, whenever we look at the numbers, or for instance, the UK, you know, every time they do the Veganuary, there's like 4 times as many people signing up. And I know I keep seeing more vegans and I keep hearing about more vegans. So I don't see how that's true at all. I mean, look at how marketing, you know, the supermarkets are responding by making a lot more effort to get more vegan novelty food in.
True.
But
if you ever like read any kind of like threads or anything that have to do with people who went like ex carnivore, ex keto, they talk about how like well, the like fake commenters kind of thing where like people just swarm and they just, you know, come in droves and like, no, you're just doing it wrong.
Oh yeah.
There's the idea of like sneaking in like lard if you end up going to the ER. I've heard that one passed around. We're like, oh yeah, they almost saw the light, and then like, oh, I got to get some lard to get that get my ketones going again.
Yeah, but like, yeah, it's like, well, if you think about it, so you go back to meat eating has been going down for the last 12, 13 years, right? So the obvious response by big meat is to put more money into marketing. So then we have all these carnivore doctors and stuff on Joe Rogan, and they have the money to pay YouTube to do anything they want. Why wouldn't YouTube offer, you know, a spam bot thing for a certain dollar amount to any company to have like a complete army of people backing you up? It's like just deep marketing, you know, like of course they're going to take advantage of stuff like that.
Yeah, like, or if there's spam comments, they just kind of overlook that coincidentally, and they shadow ban the, you know, the comments that are saying those certain keywords that are pretty damning for keto.
Yeah.
Like, it just seems to be, it's like just line them up, and there's probably just all kinds of fake accounts, because that's a very real thing. There are people that buy like bot accounts that'll just go out and just like say whatever you want them to, and they do like machine learning too.
Yeah.
I've seen stuff where it's like it'll I've actually gotten into a couple little arguments, and then like you start to see these little inconsistencies where they're clinging on to what you're saying, but then if you say something that has to do with like real life, something that's not related to the conversation, it just completely throws them for a loop, and you can just kind of tell like that's not a real human.
Yeah. Yeah, and you just you try and discuss anything in detail and they're gone, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like, why wouldn't they be doing that? Why wouldn't YouTube, a private corporation, sell an option to do something like that to another major corporation for millions of dollars? You know, like, why wouldn't they do that? Why would they tell us what they're doing? You know, like they don't have to do that. Yeah.
You know, like Chat GPT, like Chat GPT is pretty much programmed to be like an NPC where it just argues with you, like, buy the book.
We had that shit when the internet first came out. It was called Ask Jeeves. Like, it's not that interesting. It's not that, you know, they're just reselling us the same garbage over and over again, just like they do in media. You know, like the whole AI thing. When I was growing up, the AI thing, everyone was scared about it too. You know, like they ran all the movies, and you know, it's just all that programming again. But yeah, I can hear you in the background, John. I could hear me in the background of you, John Bob. There you go.
Sorry, buddy. I was trying to wait for the gap to sneak in, so I had unmuted.
Oh, go ahead.
Dude, I really like what you're saying here. What a great concept. That would explain all these bots on all these different apps.
Yeah.
The companies themselves are creating them intentionally.
Yeah.
It just makes perfect sense. There's no, you'd be an idiot to argue that. I've never
Yeah.
heard of anything that makes as much sense as that about all the bots.
Yeah.
Not to blow up your head or anything, but seriously,
Because
none
I
of
mean,
them
it's
were
nothing.
talking.
You go on there and you go look at these people's profiles. They don't have content. They don't have followers. They're just a name up there, and it's like, why wouldn't they have an army of bots that they can just program to do whatever and leave this? I mean, Israel does it. We see Israeli bots. They regurgitate the same shit, the same line for line. Like they'll do the same errors in the same sentences. Like the stuff exists. Like. Why wouldn't big corporations, big, people selling meat and who want to sell more meat, why wouldn't they pay YouTube to do some bot work? They have more money than anybody. Like they make tons of money. And when they see their bottom line start to dip, that they're the board meetings get together and they're like, all right, we got to spend some money. We got to pay some of these dumbasses who eat meat all the time. We got to give them a lot of airtime. We got to put them on Rogan. Like they have the money to pay for all that shit to happen. Why wouldn't they be doing it?
And give out those like. Wait, what's up?
They're still going down like the Hindenburg.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So it only, it's, we're all being programmed, and like in having to talk to the results of this all the time. These guys, it's just like, dude, you don't have a original thought on this subject. You're so involved in, you just have to, you got to regurgitate, this fake information you got from the internet. You don't have an actual like original thought. You just, like, go look at the Maasai, go, look at the, like all these same things that Joey went through, and now he's seeing it as being dumb, like this cult. I told him, I was like, you're in a cult, you're in it's the information, you guys are just in a group think situation where you're all blowing smoke up each other's asses in a circle. And the second someone comes in and is like, what are you talking about? And it's like, we get to observe this crazy behavior where we're seeing this like complete misinformation fest, and there was a study where they were looking at misinformation on the internet, top 5 things, misinformation about veganism, like there's so much misinformation about veganism on the internet, and misinformation about dieting, like, it's just like popular right now, and that's why like these dudes are demons, dude. Like these dudes that are making money off of people getting sick are demons. Like they're disgusting, and you could see it in their eyes when you watch their videos that they're dead. All these dudes, they all get in a room and they're interviewing each other, and they're all like this. They're like, oh, they're like probably not feeling that great about what they're doing. Not, their lives not. It's just like all kinds of compiled shit that starts with the fact that there's a rotting corpse in your stomach, and none of these dudes look happy. Who say, like, all these YouTubers that are doing the carnivore stuff, and just like Allie's people, like Allie's family members look at on it and will be all, whoa, what's wrong with fucking Jim Bob over here? They're like, oh, he's on keto, and it's like, oh shit, like completely life of the party normally, but then like completely recluse, looks like, just face looks like on drugs or something, like where they're just like not there. Like the dude wasn't even there, but usually he's like the loudest guy, but because he's on keto, like, and it's like, it just doesn't look fun, and it's like, so you're gonna like fry your body out to lose a couple pounds that you're just gonna gain back the second you start eating carbs again, which is guaranteed to happen because you can't live without them. Like, dude,
it's a waiting game.
They all binge eat. They do the thing for a while. They do the low carb thing until they lose their mind, and then they binge eat, and it makes up for the whole thing. And then all these dudes that say they're doing carnivore and keto, it's like they, in their head, since they like the idea of the diet, they try to eat that way. It only turns out sometimes but they argue it as if they are the strictest of, that is like they're strict carnivores, but none of these dudes are. All these, and then like Rogan's eating McDonald's on his show every day, and like these dudes, Elliot Freeman, that dude, he posted his freaking laundry, his cart, his grocery cart the other day, and I'm like, what's all that bread? Like, you're Mr. Paul Saladino's the king guy. Like, why are you buying bread from Trader Joe's? You say you only eat the most high quality of meats and all this stuff, but you're going to Trader Joe's for your shit. That's not high quality. Like, these dudes are just all full of shit, and they all just wish they're all fans of these false ideas. They're fans of the false male physique, and they're fans of these guys that have these false physique, these unnatural physiques. Like, you don't need that much bulk on you for any reason but like picking up rocks or something. But we have bulldozers to do that. We don't need people like that around, like it's not necessary. Like these dudes that are just like, oh, you gotta be buff, and it's like, why? So you can pick some shit up, like you got a gun, right? Like, like why do you need to consume twice as much food as you normally would to have all this heavy weight on you, and you have no cardio because you're so heavy, but you could smash something really hard, or you could pick up a rock, and like, like it makes no sense. Like these dudes, like the UFC fighters, like these dudes, they're all on tons of steroids and shit, but they're not fat, but you'll go and you'll find all these like Navy SEALs and shit that are like practically fat, and you're like, wait, what's going on here? Like it's not, they're like big buff guys, but they're like fat buff guys. Like it's like, you're not gonna, yeah, like you got to look at like it was like a whole efficiency Joey Schwartz endurance thing where he's just like, oh, we don't need carbs because of that. It's the same thing. It's like this big, like try going into the UFC being super, super, super buff. You're going to get killed, like that's not the most efficient way to fight people. All these guys are going to be strong to fight, and it's like, that's not, looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger isn't going to help you in a fight. You're going to get choked out by some guy half your size, like you're not going to smash. You're going to, like you can't even move your arms around that much. Like you got it lean. We're supposed to be lean, not as lean as John Bob, but we're supposed to be lean.
Hey, man.
He's a specimen of the raw diet.
You want to hear something?
Turn up your mic a little bit more, John Bob.
It's all the way up.
Oh yeah, we can barely hear you.
It's quiet.
Let me check. Maybe.
I'll be right.
Yeah.
Too much kombucha in the tank.
How about now?
You dumped some raw juice on it.
It's not working, huh?
I mean, we could kind of hear you now, but when Braxton talks, it's like way louder.
Huh. Well, the other day I was on TikTok and I ended up on these Meatards chatting, and I put my picture of me topless because I got sick of people picking on me for being vegan and skinny. I had a whole group of Meatards claiming that I can't be built the way I'm built on a vegan diet and that I eat hamburgers in the closet.
No, my favorite thing is when I did the debate with Joey, everyone thought Joey was the vegan and I was the meat eater. It was super funny. The comments and on the Crucible, everybody was like, "Oh, guy on the left so much healthier than the guy on the right," and it was like, "Whoop, they got it wrong." Because Joey kind of looks sickly, like he always looks sickly. So he looks like he looks like the token guy that they would be like, oh look, this guy looks like the average vegan. But Joey's got a little beer belly. He's not in great shape. I challenged him to a physical challenge, And he said he wanted to fight me, and I was like, I'm pretty sure I'd kill you, dude.
Yeah,
19.
I catch a lot of shit because of the shape of my skull, but I can't help that. My eyes are the way they're shaped.
Why is your skull shaped weird, John Bob?
Well, I guess people claim my eyes are sunken in, and that's just the way my fucking eyes are, man. People say that shit.
That didn't
constantly.
happen when you went raw?
No, dude, my skull's always been shaped this way. It's perfectly normal. I mean, I take my shirt off. I look like a statue. I look like you know those pictures you're talking about with the fruits and the Roman numerals and stuff. Dude, I am chiseled, man. But you know, like the second I put my shirt on, I just look skinny.
Yeah.
Because you can't
I
see
got
any
I have
muscle
the
from
same
the
problem.
reflection.
But I'm not like chiseled or anything, but I've been in the past. But it's still, yeah, you're just always, it's being an ectomorph. It's the life of an ectomorph. We always look just bean poles. That's why people are always like, look how skinny you are. And I'm like, I'm bigger now than I was when I was eating meat. You know, like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like,
I was always a small guy, but at the end there, like I was still small, but I had put on about 50 pounds of visceral fat. It was all under my rib cage, clogging my organs. I was just falling apart, dude. I was so sickly.
that's disgusting.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'll never eat meat again. That shit ruined me. So glad that shit's gone and all the fat went away with it. I started being able to think again, being able to find my car. That shit gave me brain fog eating meat. Scary.
I was really like a lot more aggressive of a person in my personality as a meat eater. And I remember during the period of time when I was like pescatarian, I kind of like quit eating a fish because it was like gross. After a while, when you're pescatarian, you're just like, ugh, fish is just gross. So you like, then it's like you're on to, if you're not just cold turkey vegan, then you're on to veganism. But like I could tell like when I'd go like I'd eat it like something with egg in it or something, and I'd like feel like it would like just like instantly make me more of an asshole. I don't know. But like I used to just like get road ragey more before, like a lot. Like and that's like I don't remember the last time I road raged. I know I have a couple times, but not like as consistent as I used to. But I don't know, like I mean, it definitely puts you in, like you're telling your body that you're in fight or flight, you know, so your body's going to send hormones to your brain that make you more aggressive because it's trying to make you survive in fight or flight. So when you eat like blood, you know, like and then you're mixing your hormones with another mammal's hormones, and that mammal was dying. So you're eating these hormones that are released when something is under attack, depressed, like in a cage, bummed out because they've gotten their kids taken from, it's like all this gross, all these negative hormones that you're eating also on top of it. So I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised in the least bit if it made you far more aggressive of a person in general. And like that's something we definitely don't need around more aggressive people.
Honestly, I think I'm more aggressive now that I'm eating plants, but not in a bad way. Like, God, how do I describe this without sounding like a douche? Back when I was eating meat, I was more unstable, more quick to anger. Now it's like I think things through more and I'm more dominant. You know what I mean? Not to brag, but like going raw has completely revamped the way I think.
Well, that's probably because you were sick before and you're just you've just fixed yourself and you're just being who you are instead of the subdued person was eating a shitty diet. What's up, Sir Gord?
What's up, peeps?
What's up, dude? Where you been?
A lot of sleep debt to pay off from this past week. Just had a field trip yesterday.
God
Pretty
damn
cool,
it,
but
Jeremy, your mic sucks
I'm
still.
tired. It's your life, man. My mic sucks. My phone.
Yeah, it's the same thing it did last
yeah.
time. It's like clicking. You and John Bob with your shitty
Really?
mics.
Is that what
John Bob
mine
doesn't have the
sounds like?
excuse of being on the other side of the planet.
Is
Nope.
that what mine
World.
sounds
That's
like?
weird. I don't know why. I mean,
The other side of the
when I'm
plane.
talking on the phone with people or recording something on my phone, it's not bad. So I don't know why it would be specifically bad here.
Yeah. It's
I mean,
clicky.
it's clicky.
Yeah, it's clicky.
It's picking up like regular ticking sound.
Maybe turn it down a little. Maybe it's just maxing out.
Oh,
It is
really?
pretty
It feels like
loud.
it's
It is
aliasing or
pretty
something.
loud. It is a bit loud. So maybe if you
Okay.
turn it down, it won't click as much.
Okay. I understand you saying the opposite. How about now?
Talk.
I'm talking. Is it any better?
It's not really better. That sucks.
Mm-hmm. Oh well.
Wah wah wah.
I'll just listen. When I wake up earlier, I can get to a nice place where I get set up on a computer. But yeah, I'm just not waking up so early on a Saturday typically.
Yeah, I know. Then you look like a weirdo talking to a computer, arguing about veganism. When are we gonna watch?
Yeah.
When are you gonna bring another one of those
A bunch
weird
of people,
videos?
a bunch of Korean teenagers around me immersed in their video games, swearing at their teammates,
Interesting.
in whatever they're playing, are not gonna care that I'm talking about veganism.
Dope. Well, this is Ryan. Ryan's going to be on the show next week. His channel's called High Carb Regenerator. This is his
High
other
carb
channel.
regenerator, or what?
Yeah.
I'll look it up. What's
I was
up?
looking into rice diet videos just because of the video I was making, and I happened to come across this video of Paul Saladino being interviewed by that Tom, I think his last name's DeLauer, which is interesting because Paul Saladino used to go by Carnivore MD, but he switched it because he started adding in fruits and stuff like that. So I wanted to see what this interview was all about. Let's just get rolling.
All right, Paul Saladino, I had to bring you back on, man, because you're irritating people with like flip-flopping on things and stuff like that. And now, like I saw recently,
Everybody's got black shirts on.
you added rice into your diet. Like people are like, Paul, what's next, man? People that don't actually look into the content, they just see the headlines here. Like, what's next, Paul? You gonna start doing Snickers too? Like, what was this whole rice thing about? Like, what happened there?
I used to be named Carnivore MD on social media.
That's
I
what I
changed it to
thought.
Paul Saladino MD. I don't like to be dogmatic. I like to experiment with things. And I was curious. And I've been incorporating more carbohydrates in my diet recently. We talked about that the last time I was on the podcast, right? And I think that I'm surfing 2 to 3 hours a day in Costa Rica. I have probably two.
I mean, Mike Menzer, who everybody, I don't know why he's getting so popular these days, but he is. He was huge into this. Carbohydrates, minimum 60% of your calories should be coming from carbohydrates. And you see what that dude looked like.
Actually, carbohydrates should comprise the majority of your daily calorie allotment. Carbohydrate is the only fuel that can be used for high-intensity muscular contraction. And if it isn't present in sufficient quantity in your daily diet, your body can turn or change ingested protein and your own muscle tissue into glucose, which is the blood sugar used for energy.
Remember, muscle is not mostly protein; it's mostly water. Now look at the word carbohydrate. The suffix hydrate means water. As you probably all know, the carbohydrate stores in the muscle becomes a chain of sugar molecules.
200 to 350 grams of carbohydrates a day in my diet. And that's all coming from fruit juice and honey, maple syrup, although it's hard to get good maple syrup in Costa Rica. So I thought,
wonder why.
Let's just experiment. How do I feel with rice? And I actually did white potatoes too, Thomas. So you get a bonus here. I did rice and white potatoes. Let's just see. I've talked about grains in the past, and I did some research on rice, which we can talk about, but let me see how I feel with rice.
High carb.
There's a lot.
I've actually been experimenting with myself, like potatoes only, rice only, potatoes and rice, fruit, all that kind of stuff. I am going to make a video about that. Probably not next week, but the week after.
Talk about fructose. There's a lot of fructose hating in the world. I've done podcasts kind of debunking a lot of that. I think if you look at the research, fructose in sugar in whole food form from fruit, honey, maple syrup is not harmful for humans at all. There's great research on fruit juice. There's research on orange juice, watermelon juice, grape juice, pomegranate juice, cherry juice.
Walter molecule.
They're all beneficial for humans, whether it's endothelial function, whether it's actually watermelon juice given to someone when they do an oral glucose tolerance test, improves glucose sensitivity. So you can give someone processed sugar. You give watermelon.
I mean, this guy definitely has more energy than your standard carnivore. I mean, most of the carnivores look like they're about to sleep, especially that Dr. Berg. That guy's got, it's just ridiculous.
Juice, and it improves glucose sensitivity. So
terrible.
Fruit and fruit juice, I don't fear it. I think people fearing that just don't understand the literature. But I thought, let's experiment with rice. Maybe rice will make me feel better. I want to feel good, right? That's the whole reason I did carnivore in the first place. I was eating a paleo diet that was organic 5.5 years ago. I had eczema and it wasn't getting better. I want to feel better. I'm not trying to be dogmatic about this. When I did carnivore, I thought it was really interesting that my eczema got better. And we see so many people now who
even in the vegan community, there's so much dogmatic nonsense. Like, it's crazy to me. Like I said in so many videos, why I didn't even make a channel, even though I should have back in the day, because I didn't want to be a part of this lunacy.
Improve autoimmune conditions when they cut out vegetables. I don't think everybody needs to do this. And I've often said, if you're thriving, don't change a thing. But how interesting that some people are uniquely sensitive, myself included, to foods that we think about as healthy foods. We'll probably talk about that a lot today. Foods that we think of as healthy foods that may be problematic for some people or maybe aren't as great as we think. Thing. So I cut out vegetables. I felt better on carnivore. Felt even better when I reincorporated carbs. I want to stay, I want to stay cutting edge. Like, what if I incorporate rice and I feel amazing? But I didn't just incorporate rice. I knew off the bat that brown rice had more arsenic, a heavy metal, than white rice. And when I went down the rabbit hole, I found a lot more about arsenic in brown and white rice and heavy metals in a lot of other foods. So
arsenic. Now, there used to be this chart. One of my way back videos, I found a chart of every food and how much arsenic that it generally has in it. I cannot find that chart anymore. It has disappeared off the web. And I don't even remember what video that was, but there's arsenic in everything. They like to cherry pick.
I started with white rice. I started with organic white rice, and I got the white rice and I would rinse it 7 times, in the sink. I'm just rinsing the heck out of it. And then I would soak it overnight in warm water because I live in Costa Rica, so it's always in the 70s outside. And I put apple cider vinegar in there, and then I would cook it in the pressure cooker. And I still had like brain fog. I still didn't feel great on rice. And then I thought, okay, there's actually a significant amount of arsenic even in white rice. What we look at the literature when we see is about 1 point.
There's just as much in meat. I mean, the guy's kidding himself. And there's just as much in fruit.
5 times as much arsenic in brown rice as there is in white rice. And there is some evidence that you can mitigate it somehow. It's called parboiling, where you take the rice and it's dry. You've hopefully washed it. You kind of rinse off the dust off the rice. You rinse off kind of like the rice dust when you get the rice. And then you can parboil it. You can put it in a bunch of water, and then you bring it to a boil. Then you dump that water out, hopefully with some of the heavy metals, and then you cook the rice. That can decrease the arsenic. But even when I did that, decrease the arsenic maybe 30%. Still a good amount of arsenic in the rice, and we can talk about how much. Even when I did that, I still didn't feel good on rice. So that's my...
Explain to me this. Explain to me this. How does... There's 1 billion people in 1.5 billion in China, like 1 billion in India, and all the other Asian countries are like in the millions, right? How do they function? How do they run circles around us on rice and don't have this brain fog? The brain fog could generally be that he's adding carbohydrates in, and the body's like cortisol's going down.
How do you measure brain fog?
And people have said to me,
so ridiculous.
Would you eat vegetables again? And the answer is, yeah, I would eat vegetables again. I just don't feel good when I eat them. I'm not trying to be dogmatic, and I'm trying.
I'm the same. A lot of vegetables. I mean, here I am kind of contradicting myself, but vegetables I don't always do that well with.
To always evolve the message and learn from these things. But what I find is that when I reincorporate these things in my diet, I don't feel as good. But I'm always looking for the next level, right? What if mango
Now, comparing rice and fruit is just not, you can't even do it. You can't even do it. Fruit digests like almost instantaneously and uses almost no insulin whatsoever. And I'm assuming honey is probably very similar to that. I don't know much about maple syrup. I'm not the biggest fan. So if you're going to go from that to rice, there is going to be a digestion difference.
Oh, and watermelon juice and orange juice plus rice is even better for surfing or skating, which are my main forms of exercise in Costa Rica, than my current diet, which is basically fruit juice, honey, raw milk for the carbohydrates, and then the meat and the organs. So that was where it went, and I had to take the rice out. I just didn't feel good with it. And then I tried white potatoes.
Nothing like surfing
not wanting to be dogmatic. I know there's some oxalates in white potatoes, and some people are sensitive.
No, I can't imagine why.
What is this?
My stomach is still upset after eating rice and meat.
Yeah.
Why isn't my stomach fixed? I tried rice and meat. Like,
I chugged this raw milk.
Leave the meat part out, idiot.
Yeah. It's called diabetes.
Why is my stomach still upset? I can't believe it's still upset. I'm introducing rice and meat.
Yeah.
Devin always gets triggered by the honey. Devin's a bee activist. Supreme bee activist.
Pretty much just is sugar that's been fermented in puke form.
Be good.
Why have people been able to eat food with quote oxalates in it for forever, and now all of a sudden it's an issue? Like I don't understand.
The white potatoes, and I pressure cook them, trying to decrease any of the lectins, any of these carbohydrate binding proteins in white potatoes that could trigger any autoimmune conditions, because I have a history of this.
And they say our diet is limited, and this guy's got to do all this stuff to eat his meat. But
atopic conditions, these eczema and allergies. And again, with white potatoes, I didn't feel great. It made me feel almost too full, because I know that for me in Costa Rica, I need to get calories in. I'm not trying to lose weight. I'm trying to gain weight. I'm trying to keep my weight. 2.5 hours of exercise in the water is just, I'm trying to gain weight or keep my weight where it is in Costa Rica.
I mean, back when I used to, like in the summers, when I was out of school, and I lived right.
Look at this freeze frame. Look at this guy's face. He looks dead. Look at him. He's got some creepy lips. I mean, I'm not like,
carnivore mummification.
Yeah.
On the lake, and there was, the local pools and everything. I mean, I would lose like 20 pounds over the summer. It was crazy. But I didn't have access to that. Well, I had access to it during the winter, but I mean, who wants to swim when it's like ice in the water?
When I eat white potatoes and they just make me feel full, and I don't really want to eat dinner, it's like, this doesn't feel right to me. So they didn't make me feel as good. So I'm just trying to experiment with these things and figure out what works for me. I think this is what everyone should do, but understand that.
I mean, this isn't a hate video. It confuses me a little bit when an entire population like the Irish, which is where most of my genetics come from, and the Slovaks, which also eat potatoes. How are they fine with this? But like, he's not. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Maybe it needs to be specific to Saladino. Doesn't exactly sound Irish at all. I think that's Italian. So maybe he needs a different kind, different form. Maybe we are genetically specific to certain carbohydrates. I don't know.
What they're experimenting with always has benefits.
Because you're going to have different digestive enzymes too. And plus, if he only did this for a certain amount of time, he's not going to have those digestive enzymes like he needs to get where he wants to go. So he's going to have insulin issues.
He's creepy.
Potential benefits and potential cost.
Yeah, for sure, man. How long were you trying out the rice? How long did you do that for?
Oh man, I did it like 3 or 4 occasions for 3 or 4 days each time. And after 3 or 4 days of eating it every.
You're not going to have the digestive capabilities that you need to digest. Even if we play devil advocate and say that you went from vegan to carnivore, you're not going to digest meat very easily, very quickly. Like, it's going to take a couple weeks. So if he only did this for like 3 or 4 days, I mean,
every day and feeling like this just isn't feeling good, I'm like, well, stop. And then I try it again.
Yeah. Comparatively to fruit fruit is always going to digest because it uses almost no insulin whatsoever. So it's always going to digest well. You're never going to have issues with that.
Because look at rice. It's good. I learned recently that rice has some of these morphine-like compounds in it. Milk has some, wheat has some, but when I eat rice, it's like you get a little bit like, oh, that's good, but it just doesn't make me feel good.
Do you think that, has rice always been problematic, or do you think this is something where it's the actual genetics of rice have changed? Are there things, do you think, because obviously there's civilizations that have been eating it for, thousands of years, and some civilizations that live extremely long lives eating it. Do you think there's what's the situation there? Is rice just not the same as it was 100 years ago?
Who knows, man? I'm getting organic rice, but are there contaminants? So this is the thing about plant foods that I've learned recently, and animal foods.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the animals are being fed what you're eating, so you're gonna get it somehow.
Just like if you feed a cow grains versus feeding a cow grass, the quality of that cow's meat is going to be different. If you feed a cow grass from the time it's, weaned from nursing to the time that it's becoming meat, it's going to have different
you hear how bored he
nutrients.
is?
I think it's
Saying
funny.
this story. He's like in between every word. He's so sick of saying this shit.
He's just tired of it himself. Having to repeat it. He's like,
could you imagine having to talk about this shit all the time and not even know if it's really because he's on steroids. He's big because he's on steroids.
And he's one of those guys that if he's on steroids for sure, or
of course he is. Look at his arms; they're huge.
Well, I was gonna say he has kind of a medium frame for if somebody is taking.
He's shredded. He's shredded. He's always got his fucking shirt up, showing everyone his abs. He's abnormally, at least growth hormone or something. He's not. You don't get that, dude. Try and get that big. We're like Natty. Just try.
Yeah.
Ask Ethan Schmeat, my buddy Ethan Schmeat. Try him. He's been trying to get that big off all the diets, and he's like, these dudes are all on fucking steroids. You can't get that big without steroids. And it's true. Watch Harley's Natty or Not videos. They're hilarious. Watch More Plates, More Dates. He goes through, people submit people to him, and he tells you whether you can just tell certain muscles, the cheekbones get really big. You get this really pronounced line. There's things that happen. Your voice changes. You're really flushed all the time. Remember, I was calling that lady out for having the steroid flush on that podcast because her face was all red. How come all these carnivore diet people have red flushed faces?
Oh, actually, something kind of
all the steroids.
Yeah, but something kind of interesting about that though. I remember. I think it was Dr. Greger had a video on this where there's a healthy glow that's kind of like flushing, but it's a sign of your blood actually flowing properly. But I think in their case, it's a little more like an inflammatory reaction. There's levels to that kind of blood flow. And plus, another thing, as far as when people look really shredded, it's hypertensive sort of shredded. They have blood pressure issues. That is not natural. They're really taxing their heart.
Yeah. There'd be all these old buff guys around, and all these WWF guys, these wrestlers.
Yeah.
They'd be all fucking 300 years old and shit, but they all die at 45, 50.
Yeah.
Hard to get out.
Eating Slim Jims and having that ass cancer.
Yep.
Macho Man style.
Because people I've been a heavy breather on some of my videos, and everybody's like, well, it's because he's 5,000 pounds. This dude is 120 pounds or something like that. And he's got, it's all, I don't even want to hear the weight issue with that.
He brought it up too. That's funny.
More glutathione, different things in its meat, and it's going to have less pesticides and less mold toxins that accumulate in the grains that.
I would think that that's an inflammation thing. Some certain days, man, I just got inflammation like crazy.
Brain-fed cattle are fed. Plants grown in different soils have different nutrients and can have different amounts of heavy metals. There are some plants that hyperaccumulate different heavy metals. rice accumulates 10 times more arsenic than other plants on average. So rice is a hyper accumulator of arsenic. I want to talk about some other plants too, because lettuce hyperaccumulates lead, spinach hyperaccumulates cadmium and lead and arsenic, all the heavy metals. So a lot of the foods we think of as healthy hyperaccumulate heavy metals when they're grown in soil that has heavy metals in it. So it's tricky for people. And again, it's
I can see that. I mean, it's no different than for whatever reason, our body actually prefers carbon monoxide. I don't know why. So that's why you die from it so quickly. If there's carbon monoxide or oxygen, your body is for whatever reason going to take monoxide, even though it's deadly.
It's not that I think no one should eat these foods ever. It's just if you have heavy,
at least I'm not an expert. At least that's what fireman told me one time. My next door neighbor was a fireman.
Metal toxicity, and we can talk about what that might look like or issues people might have. It's important to know that these might be foods in your diet that you think are healthy that are causing problems. So rice is a hyper accumulator of arsenic, and either this rice that I'm getting that's organic it has more arsenic, or I'm just more sensitive to it. It could also be a lectin in the rice that I'm sensitive to. I could be more sensitive to mold toxins. Rice, really all of the grain.
I still think that he needs to give this more than 3 or 4 days. I mean, that's just not.
Yeah.
Just not enough time. I just don't think it is. I mean, he genuinely could have had insulin issues with it. That's what caused fatigue.
Whether it's oatmeal or oats, right? Or wheat or rice or buckwheat, they all have more mold toxins than foods that are not dried and stored in warehouses. So you look at rice, it has ochratoxin, it has aflatoxin. Maybe I'm uniquely sensitive to mold toxins. And the other thing is that I'm changing one thing about my diet, which I think is a powerful intervention. I'm eating everything else the same. I still do my raw milk with honey when I get up in the morning. I still eat.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah, he finds like little nitpicks about the one food that he decides to just double down on.
No, like Allie keeps saying, like, poor guy, man. Like, he's like so scared. He's like, everyone's scrutinizing the living shit out of him, and he's just like trying to try things out, and like, but then he's so fearful.
Yeah, hyperfixating, and it's like almost like a hypochondriac. Like, oh, I'm especially sensitive to these mold toxins that are only in this one thing that I'm forcing myself to eat now. It's like, dude, like, try something else then. Maybe if you're so scared of rice, like, it's just try a different carb.
Yeah, he was eating it and just like typing in like, what are the bad, like what are all these horrible things that could happen with rice? Like just hyper.
Yeah, he's eating it and being like, oh, I feel so bad. Yeah, like fear mongering himself.
Reminds me of those other carnist ladies we had on the show. They're both just so same shit, where they're like, you're like, whoa, you have like some sort of mental problem. You have some sort of disordered eating problem. Like there's some, you've convinced yourself of some crazy shit and it's causing you to eat like shit, and or it's like a, oh no, I'm doing everything possible, but they aren't doing anything. They're just saying that to us.
Yeah, to try to convince us, but
yeah,
we should try to dig in. Like, I don't know. I'm kind of curious to look into like the rabbit hole of placebo versus nocebo, like how that factors into like success in diet.
About that? Oh, the gluten-free study.
Oh yeah, heard about
it. All these people think that they're gluten intolerant, and they aren't.
And like nobody has celiac.
Yeah,
like,
they realized that they were testing the people before giving them gluten-free cookies, right? But it's obvious to people what's a gluten-free cookie and a non-gluten-free cookie, right? So it was affecting the outcome because the people knew that they were on the gluten-free. So what they did was they put the gluten in capsules, or they put the cookie in the capsules. And so they have to take all these capsules so they don't know if they're eating gluten or not. And it turns out the same people that they were testing with the cookies, like all the people that are like, oh yeah, I'm like, like gluten intolerant, like all the ones that like really wanted to be gluten intolerant actually weren't. And that often the people that were saying that they were having the problems, the gluten actually helped the problems. So it was just like everything was backwards.
Well, yeah, no, and it went even further to where people were told they're receiving something with gluten, but it didn't have gluten yet. They still express these issues with the gluten and sensitivity.
My stomach, but
so
it's
there's
like,
this
it's
a psychosomatic thing, where they're just like expressing these symptoms because they're thinking they're going to be having the symptoms, and it's not when they're not actually having the thing that's supposedly giving them the symptoms. So yeah, it's a pretty. It implied that the placebo nocebo effect, it's pretty strong.
And it
So
depends on where they're getting these people from. If they're like putting an ad out for like, oh, are you gluten intolerant? Come take these tests. Like, it's like they're going to be finding these hypochondriac people because these people, oh yes, I am. I need to be tested. You know, like they're the ones that are convinced these people that
diagnose.
Self-diagnose, yeah. These self-diagnosers. It's all these people are self-diagnosed. Especially all these carnivore people that are all, oh, my inflammation's gone. I've healed myself a carnivore. It's like, dude, you shut your body down with carnivore. Like, give it real.
It's the same people who are going out and looking for these surveys who are the people who think they have something wrong. So,
yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying. You're gonna find the craziest people that have the most mental fixation on this problem or lack of problem. You know.
Yeah.
Like again, like those two Carnus ladies that were on the show. If they both went vegan, I think they'd be pretty fucking surprised in about 6 months about their problems. But I think it's more mental with those kinds of people.
They should do like a study that is like I guess maybe priming people to try to get into the, like the placebo effect where like they're being trained to think that a certain way of eating is healthy and just seeing how much that kind of like impacts their success.
I'm sure it's huge.
Yeah. I mean, because, think about like, if you see people who are like watching different things on like how to eat healthier, like a new vegan that wants to like actually be healthy while they're doing it, and they start watching all these influencers who are like, they're talking about like bodybuilding or even just like eating really healthy, and be like, look, I'm making all this progress just the way I eat. And like you see that and you start to kind of mimic that. If you have that in your mind that you're, this is what I'm doing too, you're gonna be like, it's like having an idol to look up to pretty much.
There was some documentary, I forgot what it's called. It's called something funny, but it's like all about that, like taking control of your placebo effect in order to heal your body from within.
Yeah, that like, what the bleep do we know or whatever, something like that.
One of those things. It was like, it got kind of big for a little bit, but it was kind of like wishy-washy, like The Gift or The Secret type of shit. Yeah. Or was it The Gift?
No, it's
The Secret. Yeah, The Secret type of thing where it's all just visualize success and you'll have it, that kind of garbage, which, yeah, but no.
Yeah, there's something to it, but don't put all of your, like, don't invest in it that heavily.
Yeah,
that's when you end up like Joey Schwartz with basically doing like manifestation courses. And like you said, like being a trust fund money kind of kid. It's like, of course you're going to be trying to manifest money. People. Yeah.
Yeah.
The generators.
But anyway, this is really funny. That's 2 big carnivores we lost.
Never really liked
wild.
Milk. And the month that I dropped milk at all dairy, I lost 50 pounds in 1 month.
I mean, this dude was 400 pounds though. So when he says 50 pounds, he was 400 pounds. So anyone who goes vegan who's that size will probably lose that amount of weight pretty quick. But this dude was like a big, wide. He's only 6 feet tall, but he's been up to 400 pounds, and he's like a bodybuilder dude, like big buff guy, probably the size of fucking Hard Hat or something like that. Hard Hat's a pretty big dude.
Burger patty, a little bit of heart, fruit, and fruit juice when I get back from surf. It's this. Everything else in my diet is exactly the same. I'm so regimented.
All the stuff you don't want to eat, even
in my life, that I've got to dial. And so I do one intervention, and that gives me more confidence that I'm seeing something in my life and the quality of my life that's actually related to the rice. And so who knows? Maybe people are not as sensitive as I am to things. And I think there's a lot of people that can eat rice and be fine. Check your arsenic levels, right? But yeah, it's just my experiment. I hope is valuable for other people. So if people want to follow me and just have a prescription for how to live, that's not me, right? If people are interested in my content or what I'm doing with my dietary experimentations, hopefully they know my history and where I've come
I would say that's what my channel is too. Yeah.
from. And I want to be open and honest about it. I'm going to show my blood work.
I mean, this has been a definite experiment.
Many times. I got blood work on this trip to LA, and I just want people to know, like, hey, this is my personal experience. There's some people in the health space who say the only valid thing is a randomized controlled trial. And I just disagree with that strongly. I think that clinical experience, personal experience.
If you look at most of these randomized, they are paid for in full by the person who, or the company entity that stands.
That's not especially true. And that's using their bullshit arguments against us that, you know, you can look in, like at any study, they will tell you who it's funded by. They will tell you any
conflicts of interest.
And when you're up to the meta status, the meta study area, there are redundancies built in to where if they're looking at so many studies, the same type of study from so many different places, that they weed out the information that doesn't seem right, you know, that may be money influenced or something like that. It gets weed out. It doesn't get considered in the meta study. So these people that just 200 years of science is worthless because Paul Saladino said something a couple years ago on Rogan. Like it's absolutely hysterical, and everyone does it, and especially people from the truth movement. And it's like, no, guys, you know, like because, you know, the earth might be flat doesn't mean that all science is bullshit, you know. And like I've gone to blows with Larkin Rose about science and scientism, and I'm harshly against scientism, but you know, like that doesn't mean you throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know, like, and if you know anything about studies, you know that there are these redundancies built in. So it's like these people are, all the studies are corrupt. It's like, no, you know, like it was like that was that was JD Garland's thing in our first debate. He was like, oh, you guys are using a study that has Gates Foundation money in it. It's like, yeah, it has money from 700 different foundations, you know, they're just one of them. And if you want to discount the study, you have to point out what is wrong with it and discount the study. You can't just say it's not worth it, you know, like it's corrupt and that's it. Like you have to actually point out what's corrupt about it to make it. That's the scientific way of doing things. You don't just, they don't put out a study and some scientists say no and they take it down. Like you have to, like a scientist would have to come up with the science that debunks it and show it to everyone, and everyone would be all in agreement. And okay, that's bad science, that goes away. You don't just say, oh, it's all corrupt because it doesn't fit my, you know, agenda or whatever.
That guy is not allowed to fund studies. It's like one drop of arsenic in like an entire huge pond that like animals drink from. It's like, they're going to die. It's like, no, they've been drinking that water.
Arsenic's whatever.
Yeah. Well, and like I was saying too, it's like, it's a regional thing when he's talking about these like bioaccumulator plants, that whole issue.
Yeah.
It's like, like peppers down in Mexico, it's something about there's heavy metals in the soil and everything. So you can get like hot sauces that have like lead in them. And then there's like rice in the South. Because of the cotton fields, I guess, there was the arsenic was a pretty big bioaccumulator, I guess, of or cotton was a pretty big
cotton plants.
Yeah, it accumulated a lot of arsenic, put it in the soil, and then people started growing rice on it. And rice also absorbs a lot of arsenic, so you don't want to eat rice from the South. But it's one of those.
Who was it? The health ranger guy. He was actually like testing rice, and he was finding lots of lead in the Chinese brown rice.
Oh,
we eat rice, white rice. But you know, there's metal everywhere. I think the heavy metal things is probably somewhat valid, but I feel like it's another thing like the microplastics thing. That's just like, it's just going through you. You know, you're constantly You constantly are getting metals in you. You're constantly touching metals that are absorbing through your body, you know, like, but like to be on his level where he's like triple cooking his food, you know, because he's paranoid that there's going to be something in it. I don't think this guy has a damn thing wrong that he's complaining about. I think it's just a whole act. It's just another, yeah. Well, think about this. Why is he not carnivore doctor anymore?
Yeah.
Like he got paid to do the carnivore doctor thing and he doesn't want to do it anymore because it's not what he wanted to do because he was paid to do it. Like they pushed him to do it.
And he's still kind of casting doubt on veganism as far as like the vegan staple foods of like rice or, you know, any of these. He even said lettuce. You know, it's like he's targeting these really common foods without really adding.
And he's generalizing all these foods across the board, you know, and then he's just like, oh, well, it's complicated because it depends on the soil in your area. You know, it's just like, okay, so what are you teaching anyone? It's just doom and gloom, you know, doom and gloom, do my protocol, buy my shit. You'll end up looking like me, except you can't because I'm on steroids. And, you know, I got my 15 minutes of fame and I had to run with it. You know, and like you see him talking, he's got no heart in his voice. He's not interested. He's acting like he does, but he's done that this whole time. You know, like this dude's just another liver king. These guys are all on steroids. You don't look like that by eating fucking innards. You look like that by doing a lot of exercise and doing PEDs. Like that's it. Like just like and then these dudes, you know, they get their blood work back and they're just in complete denial. And it's like, dude, you're minutes from a coronary. Like, holy shit. And then these guys all secretly get off the, you know, and that's the kind of thing they have no accountability. We don't know if they're actually even doing this stuff, you know, so they could get away with doing it for a long time. Like, you know, not doing it for a long time. Because they're just, you know, it's just, oh, this is my job is to be this diet guy, you know, and it's like this guy binge eats, guarantee he binge eats, you know, like.
Yeah, they all do. Like you said, you can't go without carbs, and like everybody's always just cheating on this diet. I've known.
And there's a study. The only weight these guys are losing is muscle glycogen. It's like, oh, great. So you're just handicapping your cardio to lose 8 to 10 pounds, maybe, you know, tops on a big dude.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, I lost all this weight. No, you didn't. You're still fat.
Yeah. Yeah. And weaponizing insulin resistance to make it to where you're like a prime candidate for having to be on some kind of pharmaceutical intervention down the line. Like you're just priming yourself for a horrible time once you finally take off blinders.
Yeah. No, these dudes, these Michael C. Pickens, these guys, these like libertarian guys, I'm just like, these libertarian keto guys, I'm like, are you fucking, like, they drive me crazy. And they have nothing of any intelligence to respond back to me with. No. They just make jokes because they know I'm like the most unprincipled libertarian on my page is Michael C. Pickens because he just like, he gloats about doing carnivore and keto, yet claims he's fiscally conservative and economically sane, yet, you know, sipping from old man Biden's tit to get food. These dudes are I tell them I tell them, but once the subsidies are gone, you're gonna be vegan. You won't spend the money to eat meat. Trust me, it's gonna be way too expensive.
And then all the people who are gonna be the whipping boys for having to go out and slaughter all the animals, like. It's going to happen when their mental health deteriorates. Then you're going to have to start pushing more people into that. Yeah.
Yeah. Having to weekly have a traumatizing experience.
Yeah.
Forced upon you.
Yeah, that would suck.
Instead of just planting some stuff.
Yeah. The easiest of the options.
Yeah. And doing some trade in a different way. But anyway, that's 3 hours, bro.
All right.
It's our 4-year anniversary tomorrow.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Congratulations.
And guess what else? The Happening.
Oh yeah, that's true.
The Happening's tomorrow.
Man, I've been nervous about that. Trying to get a little more loaded up on some different coins. But
just buy microcaps, dude. Don't waste your time with any of the big ones. Just buy the smallest coins with the smallest microcap or the smallest market cap. I mean, it's dumb. Like when you really like, oh, Steve, holy shit, dude. Crazy ass cat. Dude, we're like out in the middle of the desert and this cat's going nuts. He's slaughtered all these mice.
Oh my gosh.
The mice here are dumb. They don't know what predators are. They literally seek him out.
Yeah.
So we've had to like lock him in the bathroom and like put stuff in all the holes.
Like under the door.
Because they'll go in to see him. And then he's a psycho killer. And then we have to come out and tackle him and wrestle the dead mouse out of his mouth because he instantly kills him.
Gotta anesthetize him.
Bro.
He like doesn't know how to eat them because he'll just like eat the whole thing.
He'll
and
eat the whole
puke up
thing.
a bunch of like fur.
Bones and fur.
It's,
like
disgusting.
he gets
Yeah, like,
overly
you're not supposed to eat the
excited.
fur.
Yeah.
So gross, dude. Yeah, you're gross.
I want to like you, Steve. That's nasty.
Yeah. Owie.
But yeah. Yeah, so Joey Schwartz and Paul Saladino down. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like we got some cool guests coming up too. And we got that we got
so this
XKP
guy
eventually.
Ryan is a fellow high carb vegan via durian rider. He's got a decent if you start a channel about mention durian rider in every video, your channel will get big. It's really weird. It's because Harley's so big. He's so big on YouTube because he's been on so long, and he was like, something with the algorithm, you'll just get a big channel. But he ended Ryan really ran with the mimicking Harley thing and having Harley on the show as much as possible, and his channel got pretty big. But he was like he's big dude, very big dude, and has lost a lot of weight on the protocols. But he's not like riding bikes or anything like that. Like he's just like into lifting and shit. Weightlifting, so it's a different kind of style, but he's gonna come on next week. Who else? And then Chris, we're gonna get Chris back, and I'm gonna try and get Harley Durian Rider to come on with Chris, because that would be super dope. We make a big deal about that one. Harley's a funny dude. We'd have to do some like video reviews or something with Harley. That'd be hilarious as fuck.
Yeah.
He's like, he watches like commentating videos on like cycling commentating videos. He's funny. Like all the cyclist community, like all the like underground cyclist community, like they're in World Tour cycling. There's like commentators like Joe Rogan on UFC, and stuff like this. But like, everyone's dream team would be this guy Harley and this guy Lantern Rouge together, just because they're two Australians and they're just, the banter is just too funny with these dudes. But yeah, and then who else I want to try and work on McDougal. That would be really cool.
That would be awesome.
Have McDougal come on the show.
Yeah,
he seems to be pretty active on YouTube. And those dudes know they got to do little shows to get to stay in the algorithm.
Yeah, true.
But that would be kind of fun. Or we could get McDougal and Harley together. That'd be super funny.
I don't know if you'd do that.
I just have Harley pop up. Have McDougal on, talk to him for a little bit, and then just be all, and here's Durian Rider. Durian Rider's been trolls McDougal quite a bit because of his low sugar. Because McDougal's like, he talks a shit a lot about sugar, but it's mostly for your teeth health. So it's like, you know, just brush your teeth.
Yeah.
Eat sugar, brush your teeth. Like, come on.
Yeah, I was getting kind of anti-sugar for a while myself because because I wasn't doing so great about what's up.
It's hard not to be.
Yeah, I mean, I had some like I had issues with like cavities, and I had my fillings a while back that I was trying to get taken out because like mercury concerns.
Yeah.
I had some cavities, and I was like, okay, well, I don't want to keep encouraging those. I'm starting to get a little like anal retentive about like not eating much that had sugar. So like that was a little bit of like a neurotic kind of fixation that I had for a while. Like, oh, I can't have sugar because it's gonna eat away at my teeth. But it's like really, yeah, just keep your teeth clean. Also, there's a tooth powder you can get that is actually like it rebuilds enamel, and it can actually start. Yeah, it's legit. There's this stuff. I actually talked to this one dude.
Like AliExpress. You can buy it on AliExpress.
Oh yeah, well, you get it on Etsy for like $10, and it's like a little jar thing, and it's like you just get like little refill bags. But like, there's this one dude that I talked to once. He said like, yeah, in prison because they don't want to have to pay for a bunch of like dental health, dental checkups and everything. They'll just give people his tooth powder. It's like, that's actually pretty smart. Like keep people out of the dentist chair. But
well, tooth decay comes from malnutrition.
Also, dry mouth. If you're breathing with your mouth open at night and you let your mouth dry up, it allows bad bacteria to proliferate. Yeah.
But if you have the right diet, the bacteria won't do shit to your teeth. It's mostly from malnutrition. Most people are missing out on something that's causing their teeth to be that bad.
Jeremy's going for that question because that's interesting. But
engineered bacteria that will permanently induce tooth decay. Sounds like something the Asians are doing.
Yeah,
sounds like something that could backfire though. I won't be the first person to try it out.
Yeah, turns into like the resident of gold.
I'll get some gold grills.
Yeah, got gold teeth.
Well, Jeremy, get a goddamn mic that doesn't click. I thought Korea is supposed to have the best internet in the world, dude. You should be able to call in on a potato and it should look good.
And some good tech too. What's going on?
Yeah, what the hell?
High tech
robotic. Buy a phone for like $8 there. That's like a supercomputer.
Made right there locally.
Yeah, local, organic, raw. Fucking what else, Joey? What does Joey say all the time? What are the keywords to just throw into any statement?
Yeah, raw.
Can you believe? I can't believe that video. Oh boy,
he's grasping so hard that like he does not deserve that name anymore. Carnivore anything.
No, he doesn't have it anymore. It's Primal Joey now. He got rid of carnivore camaraderie quick.
Did he fully change it like a tag?
Huh?
You know how there's like that @ tag that's like your like main username?
Yeah.
Like
it's probably his main username. He probably can't change. But if you go to his channel, it's called Primal Joey or something like that. But if you tag him on here, it might still tag as that because that was his main thing.
Yeah.
But he's a confused young boy.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's been a long week.
Huh?
I said it's been a long week. Long couple
It's going to be another long week till the 28th.
Yeah.
It's going to go real slow.
So glad I got that sorted out. That's like good to go pretty much.
Sweet. It's going to be dope. It's super nice out here right now. We're just wandering around and it's super fun. We met another prospector yesterday.
Like out in the wild?
Yeah, this crusty old guy rides up on a motorcycle with a metal detector. I'm all, hey, is that a metal detector? He's all, yeah. Is that a Mine Lab 1000? He's all, damn, you know your stuff. You prospecting? He's all, yeah. He's all, you prospecting? Like, yeah. We're like the only dudes within 100 miles of here.
Yeah.
Well, oh, cool. He's all, yeah, I got my rig over here. He looks for meteorites. So we were like rolling our eyes as he was telling us about meteorites.
Like the NASA equivalent.
So what they do is I've heard this story a bunch of times. People find a meteorite, right? Take it to the local college. The college gets really excited about it and offers them money for it and buys it from them and tells it it's a super rare fucking meteorite. I hear it all the time. It just happened to this guy.
Yeah.
Whoa, Steve, did you hear that?
Yeah, kind of.
Made the weirdest noise. But yeah, this whole finding meteorites and like it's just like oh, I found this bone and I took it to the museum and they told me it was a dinosaur bone. You know, it's like that kind of thing where you're watching someone's like TikTok or their Instagram and they're like, this is a dinosaur I found, and you're just like, full, and then you go to the comments and everybody's all, oh really, how do you know it's a dinosaur bone? Like it's cool that there are like a lot of people out there, like, because I used to be the only one talking about that shit and everyone thought, oh, it's absolutely batshit, and it's become way more mainstream because of like tinfoil hat podcast and all these like bigger channels talking about this stuff. It's like we gotta dig deeper and find new rabbit holes because everything's taken.
Everything's getting mainstream, like blown out too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway, we're gonna hop off.
All right. Well, it was a good show.
Yeah.
Hopefully, my brain's a little more in check soon here after I've had time to like kind of unwind.
Yeah, we've had a gnarly couple weeks. We have a bunch of old vehicles, and they just like every one of our cars, like I got like it's just been nuts. One thing after another, moving tons of equipment. Like we just have like not tons of equipment. We just have a lot of rolling things and things with engines, and like keeping them all working in desert in like off road. We got stuck, and then we pulled ourselves out eventually, and we've just been doing all the things that you do in the desert, all the mishaps you have. You get stuck in the sand, and you know, but it's been fun. It was funny meeting that guy because he's like super nice, like super excited that there are like other people out here doing the same thing. We're like both in the same gold mining club and stuff. We're like, whoa. So it's like really quiet. Like there's no one up in this area. There's no reason to be out here. There's millions of square miles of like cooler places to be, you know, and or like places with like landmarks. There's Vegas and there's like lava flows over there and like whatever, and like it's like it's just interesting, quiet place.
Gotta watch more of that. Like quick note, I gotta watch more of that one guy that you sent.
Jeff Williams, the king.
Yeah, dude. I started watching his stuff.
He's hilarious.
I didn't expect that he was gonna be such like a wealth of knowledge, just like casually dropping all these like super technical terms. I'm like, oh my god, and it's just like second nature to him.
After a while, you'll start to know what you'll start to be able to see rocks and be all, hey, that's pyrite, and that's like, you know, because he shows you, but he's funny as shit. And like he says all the same stuff in like every show, so you'll start to get it, and it's like he's a really funny dude.
Yeah.
He has like events and stuff out here. I think he's in Arizona. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So yeah, it's gonna be hot.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in hot?
Yeah.
Like 120.
Actually, yeah. When I went down to Palm Springs, kind of told you about that. But
yeah, that gets hot there.
Yeah, it was one of the
lots
times.
Of pools around usually.
Yeah, one of the times when I was down there. Well, a couple of the days that I was down there, it was hitting like 116. I'd never been in that hot of weather, and like I was faring pretty well, but it was you couldn't be in the sun for more than like a few minutes without just burning. I mean,
especially if you're gingy.
Yeah. I've got some freckled people and some alabaster folks in my family.
Yeah.
So I can tan well, but oof.
She tans well. I just get red.
Yeah, get a little crispy.
Crispy.
What part of Washington do you live, Braxton?
So I'm in Wenatchee, so it's like central. It's like the desert-ish kind of area. So I mean, we get pretty hot summers out here. It'll get up to like 108 sometimes.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it does. It gets real hot out here. You'll be like driving around some days during summer, and it just feels like you roll down the window. If you're being cheap, you have like a car that doesn't have AC, and it just feels like you just like open up an oven door pretty much.
Yeah.
It's rough. But then it's like freezing cold a lot of times too.
Yeah. It's hot everywhere in California during the summer, except way northern California, but it gets hot up there too.
Yeah.
But yeah. It'll be fun. But anyway. All right, man. We can get out of here. Peace.
Peace.
Later.
Later.
Devin used to live in Washington, I guess he said.
Oh, I think it means Teresa.
Oh, T. Got it.
T.
Bye, Zyvitia.
Later.